everybody. Welcome. Sorry, I was getting some water because I woke up. I was sleeping. I woke up and oh, I gotta stream. Hello. Hello, Mama. Hello, Go My Bugs. Hello, Nimby. Hello, Haruru. Hello, Lee Min Chong. Hello, chat. Hello. Okay, wait. Yes. Adjust the camera. Yay. Smuggles. Oh, tweet the stream. I haven't tweeted the stream because I literally I was taking a nap. So eepy. Like an eepy, a sleepy. Is that a pop in given the peak stream? I see. Welcome. Today we are gonna do some chill reading today. It was more gonna be just like chill, I guess. Hopefully it's chill. It's supposed to be like a visual novel kind of thing. But welcome for popping in. I need to literally just after dinner I was just like, huh, I'm snood. What a week, huh? It did be a long week. That game, I did have a line around like the gallery. You did? You like not Vampire Man. Werewolf the Apocalypse 2? Like I haven't this will be my first Werewolf the Apocalypse experience. I haven't touched it given 𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒕𝒔 holding me captive. That's bad. Gotta be scared of today's horror game. It's not really a horror game. Like it's horror elements. It's on the list of participating games. But I don't think it's like too scary. Like yesterday one wasn't too scary. And I kind of like it that way. Like it's kind of nice. You get an interesting story without being too worried about things flying in your face or dying a lot and things being too difficult. It's like Victorian horror doesn't use horror elements, and instead it's like, yeah, it's more like like anxiety, like more creepy, I guess. Personal horror kind of. Especially today, I think at least if it's like Vampire the Masquerade, then it'll probably be more trying to hold on to humanity. But I don't know how Werewolf the Apocalypse goes. Because at Werewolf the Apocalypse, what I understand, they try to not protect the earth, but like they're almost like guardians of the earth, in the sense that they're always going about Gaia or something. Because like I really don't know much about Werewolf the Apocalypse. Brush girl, I ate and then I went sleepy. So because I think today is also like a reading kind of stream, so I'll probably go for like 3 hours. Because from my experience, I can only like read for like 3 hours straight. After any more than that, it just kind of starts straining my throat a bit. I'm just enjoying some ramen carbonara. Oh, you mean like is it like the spicy noodles one? Spicy noodles one? Me thinking what for dinner? What you gonna have? You have noodles too? Nice. That's pretty good. Pulled out, it's not pulled out. I see. So it's just regular ramen carbonara. Oh wait, I forgot to add a hashtag. Oh, I gotta print it out again. The music is too loud. I think I turned myself down. Wait. I think that'll help. Is this better? I made myself louder. I think I turned myself down earlier for reasons. Reasons I will not explain. The Hungry Ghost Festival. Yep, alright, that's good. I'll get you. Get your gumdrops. I prefer having a functional stomach and not having to crack up the milk. I mean, you don't have to put all the spice. How's your right eye? It's better. It's no longer like, cause like a few days ago, my eye was like kind of like swollen a bit, but now it's better. This V20 or N-Wad? It's V20. I think so, or I think so. I can't confirm though, but welcome. Cause like I don't know about Werewolf enough to like know. This will be my first Werewolf game. I'm so used to Simply's loud audio, so this is my standard stream. Headphones. Simply does have loud audio, but she just hyper. Yeah, it's a werewolf time. I know one thing, werewolves are weak against silver. Still true. She's funny. Yeah, she is funny. You're a werewolf, you need a silver werewolf. I wonder if that's true. Let's discover that soon. We'll be reading for. I can't focus if the music is too loud. Yeah, it's like when I drive and I need to back up into like a. I need to focus on driving, and then I'll turn the music down. But for some reason I asked chat that once, and then you guys said that you don't have that problem, so I guess it's just skill issue. Killing werewolf is guns. I think apocalypse werewolves are just like really strong though, in general. Paladin stuffing super coins in a sock to people, just like smash them. One sec. Booting. In a world of darkness. Sure. You just. Oh my god, it's so loud. Delay. Lower text delay to display text faster. Why would anyone want text to be delayed? Make it window mode. He may not have a silver soul, but he's an out of options. That is fair. Accessibility front. Sans serif. Wait. Better quality, better performance, better quality. Are you guys on Team Vampire, Team Werewolf, Team Vampire versus Vampire Girls Hot? Do you have to pick a side? But I do like Vampire. Let's see. Accessible font. If the text is hard to read, try to change the font. Sans serif or open dyslexic. Sans serif everywhere. I think. Well, I'm not dyslexic, but I think it'll be better to like have a better, easier to read font for for like stream purposes. Okay, let me just switch to the game. Would you date a werewolf or a vampire? It depends on the person. Is it a nice werewolf or a nice vampire? Alright, let me switch to the game. This is how the game looks like. Is it? Let me see if it's loud. I think it's a little loud. Maybe I just like things super soft, I guess. I would date anyone. I'm lonely. Okay, wait. I'll start. I'll click start. Let's see how. If it's too loud, I'll lower it again, or increase it. Please wait. Loading. Oh, nice. Okay. Introduction. Samira Ramani. Start the chapter. Alright guys, we're gonna do reading soon. Unless it reads for us. Okay. The font does not look as cool now. Maybe I do change it back. Wait, hold on. Let me go to the... Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I have to do this from the main menu. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to main menu. Okay, maybe we do have the cool text. Paragraph delivery. It was around here. We'll have some today. Literally shaking and crying right now. Oh my gosh. Start the chapter. Okay. I am Samira Ramani, a Guru of Afghanistan, sworn to fight alongside my fellow werewolves to protect Gaia and her inhabitants from the worm. Rage drove okay, the text is really hard to read now. Okay, hold on. Sorry guys. I should have kept... Oh wait, did I click credits? I clicked credits. Oh, hello! Hello, my ear trumpet. Main menu. Hello?
My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Gifted 𝑚𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒊𝒕𔔄𝒔. Samos todo subathon.
Take three. Take three, guys. But thank you, my ear trumpet, for the member. Gifted member. Alright, okay, take three. Okay, so like what I understand. Okay, Garu is werewolves. Gaia is earth. Yeah, it does say. Worm is corruption, manifestation, and symbol of evil and entropy and decay in Garu belief. Change it up, change it up. Okay, yeah, it's so much easier to read. Okay, I'll start again. I am Samira Ramani, a Guru of Afghanistan, sworn to fight alongside my fellow werewolves to protect Gaia and her inhabitants from the worm. Rage drove every step as I tore my enemies to pieces over and over again. But the humans have taken too much, and anger battles despair as I wonder, are they even worth fighting for? In this game, the choices you make will affect who you are, who you were, who you are, how you fight, and who you become. So Samira Ramani, it is time to choose what is your story. Choose one physical skill. Using a skill can be tricky, risky, but rewarding. Okay, wait, let me put myself on the other side so you can see the text a bit better. Unless it switches sides, then that'll be unexpected. Guru is werewolf in French. No. I wanted to say nice and it ended up going like nose for some reason. But I see. Okay. Athletics, stealth, or survival? I feel like we need more athletics. Maybe we need to chase people. Then survive. I'll go athletics. As a young Garou, you learned how to channel your werewolf strength to run, fight, jump, and dodge faster than normal humans. Choose one social skill. Persuasion, intimidation, or animal kin. I want a dog. A friend to local wildlife in your youth. You learn how to manage creatures of all sorts, predict their behaviors, and identify markings. Choose one mental skill. The occult, medicine, or technology. We have technology. Proceeds to smash the paper with an entire PC. Computer and electrical systems have an order to them, something that attracts both you and the Weaver spirits that occasionally inhabit them. The Weaver, manifestation and symbol of order and pattern. I see. Wait. Okay. Rage filled my heart the day my parents died. The day my country was taken over yet again, this time by forces from within. As a Garou, I could finally do something about it all. Rage is a double-edged sword. Low rage allows you to make wise decisions, while your caution may cause you to falter when action is needed. High rage can enable you to fight against the evil that consumes your world, but it can also overwhelm, threatening to destroy the humanity within. Then... fuck the consequences, let's fight. Super anger issues or be normal? Be super anger issues, let's go! I am the first to enter a fight, and the first to start one. Depression! Depression is what the doctors call it, but to Garou Harano, it's a state of despair unique to werewolves as you face repeated losses in your fight against the worm. Be warned, High Harano will cause your decisions to be clouded with despair, and you will be unable to shapeshift into your Hispo or Krynos form. This apocalyptic fight may be bleak, but you are armed with skills, rage, and a pack of savage like-minded werewolves by your side. In a world like this, will you fight the endless battle, or will the despair consume you? Man, I should have picked high despair first. But I feel like because we have really high rage, I think we have to pick low despair. Because otherwise I don't think we can become a werewolf as often. A mild inconvenience happened and a werewolf eats someone across the room. Yeah! I am Samira Ramani, a Garou of Afghanistan. Let's destroy this worm, one battle at a time. Character sheet. To review your choices, check out your character sheet and journal. Look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. I see that. You can find loads of useful information about Samira, her background, personality, goals, and so on there. Oh, that was the prologue. I see. So there's this character build. Oh wait, no, that was introduction. This is prologue. Ooh, nice art. Run, whispered the moon. I prepared to fight. I was tense, on guard and ready to fight, but the bone-white snow and the stark trees that surrounded us were bereft of life. Kazim ran by my side, my hand gripping his thin arm as we raced alongside the border of Belarus and Poland, searching desperately for a way through the barbed wire fencing that pitilessly barred our way. The cutting, raging snow blinded our eyes in the freak storm, a series of bad luck in the never-ending tragedy that had begun months prior when the Taliban had overtaken my country once more. I felt a clawing of panic within me. The gods were no match for a werewolf, but Kazim, my brother, was only a human, and a child at that, and the guards would not hesitate to strike him down. I wanted to destroy them all before they had the chance. Tendrils of red began to suffuse the corners of my vision when I felt a small hand grabbing mine. The fury instantly abated as I took a deep breath, squeezing Kazim's hand reassuringly. It's alright, I promised. Oh no, wait, it's a little loud. I think, is it the ambience of... Okay. It's alright, I promised. My voice carried away on the howling wind as he smiled. pretending to believe it. Hello, 𝒂💏. Welcome. Welcome, 𝒂💏. This border was meant to be our last hope, our promised entry to the EU after the long, treacherous journey from Afghanistan. How have you been? We are reading today. We're doing good. Okay, it's still loud for me. I think it's just like certain sound effects are a little loud, like in the music, certain instruments. Instead, hope had turned to horror as we found scores of gaunt refugees crowded together in an undulating sea of desperation that pushed fruitlessly against the border. Families cramped and huddled around fireplaces and within ragged tents if they were lucky. We're lucky! We were one of the lucky ones, but even a tent would not stop the freezing grasp of the coming winter that loomed like the mountains of my homeland over us all. The violence of Polish guards and a razor-sharp barbed wire fencing were stopping us from getting in, while Belarusian soldiers were preventing us from getting out. We were trapped like a mahi. What's a mahi? Oh, it's a fish. It means fish. Caught in a net as we gasped for air and freedom. And so we had traveled far from the camp, hoping, praying to Gaia to help us find a way through in the deathly stillness of night. We must escape. I'm trying! I almost said this out loud in my frustration, but kept silent at the last moment in case any guards were nearby. There was no answer. I felt bitter anger rolling within me as I listened for an answer but heard no response. As far as I looked, the barbed wire stretched ever forth, a delicate ornamentation that sliced through the forest. Fresh snow draped over the smooth paths on either side, concealing the graves of the trees and that the guards had torn down to make way for this silver ribbon of pain. My eyes frantically roamed the fencing as we ran. Over there, the barbed wire lay in shadows, but I could nearly make out something in its midst. My duty was to keep him safe. My brother. Your place in the Werewolf Society will be determined by your renown. Win glory through defeating mighty enemies and succeeding in dangerous quests. Gain honor by following your moral imperative and upholding the laws of the Garou. Accumulate wisdom by acting efficiently and thinking well before you act. Your renown will change as you play, contributing to Samira's legend among the Garou. I think she could. My duty was to keep Kazim safe as I motioned for him to hide in the woods while I ran to inspect the fencing. As I gingerly approached, a shadow form took shape. Face. A small, doll-like face looked into mine as its painted white lips curled into an eerie smile before it disappeared, a trick of the Umbra, the spiritual mirror of the physical world. All speculations dissipated as I stared at the hole in the fence that had appeared beneath it. This was our chance to escape. The shining light to my right made me start as I scurried back into the woods to rejoin Kazim. Just in time as a guard marched along the fence where I had just stood. Motioning to Kazim, we melted into the forest, putting distance between ourselves and the soldier as we searched for another way through. Glints of the barbed wire shone at the corners of my eyes as we ran onwards. In turn, the gleam of a flashlight, the eyes of a guard, the edge of a gun. The hunter seeking the child at my side and their prey as we ran faster and faster, searching frantically for any way through. Another burst of light, once I recognized with relief as that of Luna's. Oh, the moon, okay. As she shone gaily from behind the clouds, revealing at last a small gap beneath the silver that barred our way. Snow crowded greedily at the torn edges of the fencing, but it would be a matter of moments to clear it. Moments we did not have. For the moonlight also shone upon the hunter, which I had feared. A Belarusian border guard headed our way. Flickers of light and smoke momentarily illuminated harsh features above a smoldering cigarette as he paused by the fence before turning about face to scan the other way. I could take him. I sprinted recklessly towards the guard, my feet silent across the surface from years of racing across snow-capped mountains. At the last moment, he sensed my presence, turning his face just as I connected with my fist, strengthened with the power of wolves. With a satisfying crunch, he dropped unconscious into the snow, my heart racing with exultation. I quickly covered his body with the powdered snow to hide him, not caring if he lived or died as long as it ensured our safety. I motioned for Kazim to come over as we cleared the snow. Kazim scurried beneath the fence like a hare fleeing the snow leopards that snapped at their heels. As he wriggled through, Kazim's coat caught in the fence's razor-sharp clutches. I shoved him forward, following close behind as we at last made it safely to Poland. A piece of his torn coat clenched within the barbed wire silver hands, our final sacrifice to the border. We made it! Oh, we didn't make it yet. We had only made it a few hurried steps into Poland when an ancient forest loomed abruptly before us, menacing in its suddenness. The thick line of trees melded together as one against the blackness of night and white snow that violently battered at this vanguard of the woods, a frozen wave of a dark sea. I heard about this forest as a child. When I was a child in Afghanistan, my tribe of Garu, our sept, as a group, had mentioned the forest and another group of Garu that resided within. Okay, it has a pronunciation. I was just about to ask how to pronounce that. 𝒂𝒎𝒆 𝒂𝒎𝒆, they called it. 𝒂𝒎𝒆 forest. Thousands of tiny wooden arms above reach plaintively away from their trunks toward the border, as if seeking to reunite with their brethren on the other side, or perhaps seeking their kin that had long stood beside them, now ruthlessly wiped away for a frozen valley and its silver river. A river I wished to put far behind me as I rushed forward into the embrace of the trees as the forest swallowed us whole. What was this feeling? What was this feeling? Longing? Regret? I could not put my finger on the emotion, but it grew stronger with every step. No time for mysteries. Whatever it was, I pushed the feeling down. Emotions and mysteries had no place here tonight. Will Aunt Khadija come get us? Kazim whispered, the sound making me start in the oppressive hushed silence of the dark forest. Yes, once we're out of the woods, we can find a phone and call her. I whispered back as he looked relieved. Warsaw isn't very far, so we might even see her by tomorrow. You'll enjoy Warsaw. You'll like the city, I promise. It's a lot different from our home, but when I studied there, I found all the best spots. And we can enroll you in a school, an actual school. Kazim seemed less enthused at this as I nudged him. A school where you can play football. His eyes lit up as he grinned up at me. Stop right there, criminal scum! The beam of a torch blazed through the forest, illuminating Kazim and I frozen against the birch trees. Run! Luna's voice intertwined with the sirens that suddenly pierced the night sky. We dashed desperately through the forest, the branches of the trees grabbing at us, bramble bushes clinging to our legs. I searched for an easier route. Oh, hello, Capitan. Welcome, Capitan. We're doing reading today. I searched for an easier route. The darkness was thick and cloying, but I spied an open path through the dark, grasping branches of the forest. I grabbed Kazim's arms once more, leading him swiftly through the trees, our breathing ragged with fear as we burst into an open clearing. The flaming orange leaves of autumn now lay entombed on the ivory snow that lay over the clearing like a shroud, smothering fallen logs that rose up gasping from the ground in one final hopeless attempt to return to their place in the sky. Don't move! The pristine hyaline veneer was broken with a loud crack, like the sound of breaking bones. Two border guards stepped forward across from us, assault rifles gripped threateningly in their hands. Raise your arms, one of them yelled, his face set and cruel, any empathy long exterminated. Make us, I snarled. The guards signaled as I felt two more guards appear behind us, a German shepherd at their side. One twisted my arm violently. We can make you, he laughed as he easily shoved me forward into the snow. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance, but managing to stay upright as the fury grew. My mind raced, searching for a way out. Some choices may strain your health or willpower. When you lose all your health or willpower, you become impaired. This will make physical tasks, if you have 0, or social and mental tasks, if you have 0, this harder and sometimes impossible. The dog! Please, doggy, help me! The German shepherd whined as I locked my eyes with it, willing it to run away. It obeyed my command, but was instantly yanked back by its keeper, who yelled at it. A distraction was not enough, for I could see in their eyes that we were merely rats that had escaped from their cage, and we could either obediently return there or be put down. But I was no rat. Homid is the human form, perfect for talking and manipulating things. Glabro is strong enough to lift heavy things without breaking a sweat and intimidate. Praenos is a war form, ruthless killing machine. There's nothing subtle about it. Hispo is a monstrous wolf form, fast, smart, and heavy, and absolutely scary. Lupus is the wolf form, a majestic animal with all its advantages and limitations. I shapeshift. Choose my form. Just immediately just become a wolf and like nom 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 nom. Monstrous. Hispo might be. I was Hispo, the monstrous wolf form. I was more than a wolf. My spine cracked and twisted. My knees and ankles broke and I fell on the ground. My jaw shattered and rearranged itself. My whole skin was on fire, rippling and sprouting fur. I howled in agony. When I rose, panting and spitting blood, I was Hispo, with strong paws, mighty jaws, and a mane of fur. More than a wolf, scary and monstrous. A primordial being on all fours, my monstrous body drew the petrified gaze of the gods. Okay, one second. It is still very loud because it's amping up. I attacked. I took advantage of this hesitancy and leapt forward, my fangs and claws sinking into the nearest god's body. I heard him gurgle. The music was so loud. I'm sorry. I can lower it a bit more, because I think it's loud too. It still feels the same volume. Okay, and we can lower it for you guys instead of just me. There we go. That might help. I heard him gurgle, blood flowing over his lips. The gods yelled and I felt the crack of a baton on my body. If I could laugh, I would. They really thought that was enough to stop me. I saw one of them raise their gun, but I was too fast, too strong for them as I leapt at him. I knew the others would start firing any second, so I must be quicker than them. A sudden howling of wolves filled my ears. As I recognized the cries of my kin, Garou launched into the clearing, shining fangs tearing at the gods. But this was my fight. I took advantage of the chaos and turned on the god nearest me, claws extending as I swiped at their face, blood spurting gloriously from the slash marks. You know, like the musical style. I mean, maybe, yeah, chiller. Hopefully, actually, it's probably just trying to match the vibes of the game. Like chaotic. Because it doesn't feel much musically right now. Like, it's more ambience, I feel. I had no time to enjoy my victory though. As I turned to the next guard, a gleeful rage filled me as my fangs sank into his chest, claws tearing off his arm. He screamed once and then no more. The other guards were no match for me, and in a few short, bloody moments it was all over. Silence crept in as the clouds cleared above, Luna shining benevolently down on the crimson blood that was painted in chaotic lines across the white snow. I shapeshifted back. The wolves and I shapeshifted back into our homemade forms, a previous rite of dedication ensuring our clothes returned as well. Oh, so you can get your clothes back. That's neat. One of the 𝑭𝒏𝒂𝒎 approached me, my body still heaving with the change. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks for the help, I said gratefully. I'm glad we got here in time. These border soldiers, she looked at them, the fury of the wolf still evident in her eyes. She introduced herself as Maya, another as Kim, Daniel. Their names blurred together in my head after the events of the night, and I started to feel faint. But I needed to stay strong for Kazim. Kazim, I realized he was no longer by my side, as a ragged panic started to claw within my chest. I scanned the clearing. The wolves, the bodies, where was he? I scanned again, feeling my breath choking me, but he was nowhere to be found. Amongst the wolves? No. In the forest, the bodies. The bodies! The panic violently tore at me as I stared at the ravaged bodies in the snow, one smaller than the rest. My terrified gaze locked onto the ravaged bodies of the soldiers, a small dark form lying beside him. His name! I screamed my brother's name, rushing over as I collapsed down beside him, but I could see it was already too late. Blood stained the front of his clothes as his sightless eyes stared wide up at the moon. Oh no. Who murdered him? Was it me or the others? As if a cursed trance, I turned my head, heart pounding dully, and the sounds around me fading as I followed his gaze. The clouds rushed in waves away from the center of the night sky as I saw her face. The brightness now turned to a dulled, deathly gray as a mocking voice echoed in my mind. I told you to run. Chapter 1. Awakening. Well, we lost a brother already. Return to Warsaw. Luna's mocking voice echoed in the glowing darkness of my room as the vision of the past faded away. During the day, these memories were kept far at bay, but once the light fell, they eagerly crowded at the edges of my mind, ceaselessly repeating their shifting, strident melodies. Some nights, Luna was helpful and kind. Others, like tonight, she was mocking and cruel. Sometimes, she said nothing at all. I preferred Luna in one way, indifferent. The nights when she was indifferent, I felt neither happiness nor pain, in a strange sort of numbing relief. Several long months had passed since that night, since that had happened. My aunt, Khadija, a guru from my sept in Afghanistan who had moved to Warsaw years before, had taken me in, even getting me a part-time job at her girlfriend's bar, 𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒄𝒂𝒍𝒔, a secret meeting place and hangout spot for the local guru. I was grateful for the job. I knew many of the other refugees had struggled to find work, and I was happy to have a way to pay back Khadija for allowing me to stay with her. And yet, a small, cynical part of me wondered, why even bother pursuing my university degree in the first place? I had studied computer science at Warsaw University, but it was now starting to feel like a complete waste. Upon my return this autumn, I had eventually tried to fit back into the city to be less of a burden to Khadija. I had met up with the other guru, trying to get involved in the affairs of the sept, but it had felt harder and harder to care about protecting the humans. Eventually, I had given up. What was the point in going outside when everything turns dark and gray and memories floated through every stranger's face. I had heard Khadija whispering of Harano to Victoria, her girlfriend, the Guru despair. I had fought against it, but I had felt it grasping at my heart every day with a new intensity, and I worried it would soon consume me. I shoved the thought of Khadija down as I turned on my side, thin black curtains drawn across the window, the moon just beyond, her voice a beckoning call. I answered her call. Something moved within me, as for the first time in a long while. I stepped to the window and threw open the blinds to answer her call. Staring out over the Warsaw cityscape, a solid, jagged line of buildings stood dim and gloomy, with Luna shining high above it all. Her form tonight was the same as the night of my first change into a werewolf. This form had also determined my role in the pack, my auspice. I have no idea what this is. Okay. Let's see. A new moon. I was a ragabash, a trickster who challenges traditions. Luna's favor granted me a gift, blissful ignorance. The ability to become invisible through the power of a chameleon spirit. That's kind of cool. A crescent moon. I was a theurge, a mystic and friend to spirits. Luna's favor granted me a gift, living ward, a shield against lesser spirits that sought to harm, gained through the power of a wolf spirit. A half moon. I was a philodox, a judge and arbiter. Scent of the past. The ability to catch glimpses of the past via scent through the power of a crow spirit. Galliard. A gibbous moon, a storyteller, musician, and law keeper. A song that recalled peaceful times and lowered rage. Arun, a warrior and a leader. The ability to jump great distances, horizontally and vertically, gained through the power of a hare spirit. I don't know. I feel like trickster is funny. Yeah, the pig trickster. Blissful ignorance sounds funny. Gifts can only be used once. Really? Damn. I used to enjoy joking and laughing with my fellow Guru, but now I reflected the more cynical side of Ragabash. The character sheet includes gifts received after selecting your auspice and tribe, and items picked up as you travel through the story. Items are single use. Once they are used in a choice, they are removed from your inventory. Luna's form soon became obscured as the memory started to play once more, the voice of the moon intoning monotonously as I fell back into bed. The void of the ceiling above transformed to a vision of the past as I lay there, trapped, waiting and willing for dawn. Breakfast with Khadija. Dawn's morning rays filtered into the room as I finally got up. I headed down to the kitchen, led by the aromatic smells of breakfast wafting through the hallway, which meant Khadija was already up, which meant conversation. I debated finding some means of escape. But hunger gnawed at me. Food! The tantalizing smell of the breakfast Khadija had cooked wafted through the hallway. My stomach rumbled as I resignedly headed in. Khadija sat cross-legged on an embroidered cushion on the floor, watching the news as they interviewed Helena Zelinska, a SEAGamethetic, the lower house in the Polish parliament, politician popular for her aid to the Ukrainian refugees. I tuned out. I did not feel like listening to the news today. YTA game, that's what I discovered. Yeah, it's my first time playing a YTA game. I normally play a lot of VTM stuff. I like VTM a lot, but this is my first YTA experience. Wait, why did I say YTA? WTA. Khadija quickly flicked off the TV as she noticed me enter, turning to face me. Her thick, black hair was pulled loosely back in a high bun, and that accentuated her sweetheart face. Despite being from Afghanistan, a country of majority Muslims where women were expected to cover their hair, we had grown up obeying only the litany, a set of tenets that has long governed werewolf society. It has received criticism in modern, a fact we had to conceal whenever we left our sept. Although usually careful when I left our sept's village to follow traditions, I had accidentally been caught once on my own by a stray traveler while exploring the do Kush Mountains. And God for mountain goats. I'd asked a nearby mountain goat to create a distraction. Naturally, the goat had refused to listen and attacked us both, creating the opportunity I needed to slip away. A maroon tablecloth, woven with delicate geometric patterns, was spread in front of Khadija, upon which rested breakfast dishes of rot, eggs, eggs-fried vegetables, paneer cheese, sambosa, and my favorite, sheer chai tea. We owned the table, but we both had spent too many years eating this way to change it for Warsaw's customs. Breakfast? Sure, I said unenthusiastically. I could hear her let out a suppressed sigh as I turned to wash my hands before joining her for the meal. I used my right hand to scoop up the eggs with a rod and forced a mouthful. Bland. Everything tasted so bland these days. I could sense Khadija was worried, but she kept silent as we finished eating and washed up. After the meal, Khadija turned to me, fishing a small package out of her purse. I need to deliver this to Ilona. Can you take it? No problemo. I felt bad for my lackluster response earlier and tried to muster up some enthusiasm. She flashed a surprised smile as she handed it to me, kissing me on the forehead. Thank you, Azizam. I've got to head to work, but I'll see you later. She grabbed her things, heading out the door as I sighed. I had planned to spend the day inside, but oh well. I sighed heavily, wishing that I had denied her request. Looking down at the package in my hand, I examined it closely, wondering what Khadija would need delivered personally to the head of our sept, the group of werewolf packs that resided in Warsaw. I'm not gonna open it. I put it in my bag. I stuffed it into my bag. Whatever, none of my business. I half-heartedly got ready to go, finally leaving the apartment and locking the heavy door behind me with an old-fashioned bronze key. Taking the creaky, 100-plus-year-old lift down to the ground floor, I stepped out onto the frosty Warsaw streets, my breath billowing in the air as I exhaled. The, how do you pronounce it? Cairn awaited. Unexpected encounter. My university friends had expected I would have a hard time in the winter, but to my surprise, I had found the temperatures similar to my home deep in the northern Afghanistan mountains. I shivered as a cold breeze sliced at my face. Even if I was used to it, it didn't mean I enjoyed it. I picked up the pace, heading quickly towards the cairn. Cairn? A spiritual place of power around which a group of werewolves gathered. I see. The spiritual center of the Garu Sept, and where Ilona, our leader, could be found. I took the bus. I swiped my card, stepping onto the bus. Unfortunately, all the seats had been taken, and I was forced to stand in the middle, precariously holding onto the handle. Welcome, Andy. Egg. When I had first moved to Warsaw, the city had overwhelmed me. The enormous, crowded skyscrapers, the rushing people, and the streets filled with toxic fumes from cars, trucks, and buses, so very different from the quiet mountains and tiny villages of my homeland. I probably missed it. I missed it. The star-swept skies above, sleeping outdoors in the mountains, curled up in my lupus form, the freedom of silence. I brushed the thoughts away as the bus closed its doors and we lurched forward. I stared at my phone. That's what we all do. The words and images blurred together as I scrolled mindlessly through my phone. The bus jolted, and I stumbled sideways, quickly putting my phone away so I could hold on with both hands. I watched the city fly by, Warsaw's curious blend of tranquil nature, soaring skyscrapers, and candy-columned edifices that, no matter how many times I passed them, always held a new fascination. As we passed a row of aged apartment buildings swathed In bold graffiti, the spray paintings seemed to blur together into a crowded mess of artwork, the harsh swirls and blunt lines of black and white appearing to sway upon the walls. Whoa, that was trippy. Horror filled my mind as the graffitied paint began to painstakingly peel itself off from the building, twisting and twitching spasmodically until it had formed a massive, centipede-esque creature of tangled serpentine lines. It sniffed the air as its semblance of a head slanted towards the bus I was in. The bus shook. The bus began to shake violently, but while I held on tightly, the rest of the passengers seemed oblivious. With a jolting speed, the creature began racing robotically toward me, a feeler of dripping paint reaching out inches away from the bus. Seeing things. And then it vanished. I looked for it. I scanned the street intently, but we had already driven away from my building. The bus continued onwards, as my mind raced over what I had seen. Was I going insane? Wait, I was losing my mind on top of everything else. But was I? A small part of me whispered, for the menacing aura of that spirit had seemed all too real. Perhaps Ilona would have the answers. The current of Warsaw. Undercurrents of spiritual energy filled the air, swirling mistily around me. Silly is a word? As I stepped out onto the road across from the old Gasworks Coliseum, our Karen hoped to the sept of Warsaw. The Gasworks Coliseum was a mottled red and gray brick structure that, despite its dilapidation, towered with a fierce pride against the grim, overcast skies, a place where the separation between the physical and spiritual worlds was at its thinnest. While the Warsaw Sept had claimed the part of their city as their own, my Karen in Afghanistan resided within a natural rock cave set high and deep in the Hindu Kush mountains, with delicate veins of emeralds lining the walls of the circular chamber. And yet, they both exuded the same power of the wild, of nature. Manifestation and symbol of pure change. The chaos and transmutation and an elemental force. Okay. Of the earth that connected us all. I crossed the empty road, approaching the wall as the pulses of spiritual energy grew stronger. It drew me in. A fierceness to match the currents rose within me as I eagerly stepped forward into the flowing wave of rage. Though long since abandoned, the Gasworks Coliseum still lay within the city's bounds, and as the decades passed, security had increased in the form of cameras and security guards, forcing the Sept to devise ways to protect it from wandering eyes. Hacking. They asked me to help hack the computers when I had arrived. I helped. I wasn't using my computer science degree for anything else, so might as well help out. The most important defense, though, was the cairn itself, a living ward which held a powerful guardian spirit that fiercely protected its home. Or so they said. I had certainly never felt or seen evidence of this so-called good spirit guardian, and I secretly wondered if some of the older Garou had perhaps taken a few too many hits to the head. As I approached, a thick wall of grey concrete topped with barbed wire came into view, another reason I had avoided coming here after my return to Warsaw. There's the main entrance. I used the main entrance, a hidden gate disguised as a section of the wall. The way through was openable via one of the many graffitied artworks that covered the concrete. The moon! A hyper-realistic portrait of Luna splayed across the wall, but with the craters instead portrayed as gaping wounds of blackened shadows. I had often wondered if a Garou had created this, some theurge haunted by a terrifying portent, or if it had been a fortuitous coincidence. Quickly slipping through, the wall immediately snapped shut behind me. I entered the abandoned lot surrounding the cairn, a desolate stretch of straggling wild grasses and patches of parched dirt covered intermittently with piles of decaying snow. The overcast skies ahead parted as the sun streamed forth upon the grim cairn, highlighting the rust red of the outer walls and accentuating the darkness within. As the gleaming rays shone down, they touched upon an object out of place amidst the dusky snow. A red poppy, a flower. A red poppy, the national flower of Poland. I picked it up. I plucked it, tucking it into the side of my backpack. I felt lighter suddenly, as I remembered this flower symbolized consolation in grief. Maybe it was a sign of better things to come. I immediately overcame my depression. I have 0 Harano now, that's what it means. As I continued walking, Ilona appeared from the cairn's entrance, her towering form casting a lengthy shadow upon the ground as she strode to me. Khadija had told me about her past when I first arrived. She's trans. Her identity as a trans woman. Although Poland had strict laws, even forcing one to sue their family, Ilona had been able to transition to her true self. While my country was even less welcoming, I had fortunately grown up in a constantly shifting Garou community that had welcomed anyone and everyone. Samira, it's been a while. She regarded me with an indecipherable expression. A low, tenor voice remained neutral, but I sensed an underlying meaning to her words. Hello, Azurai. Welcome, Azurai. We're doing reading. It has, I matched her gaze, a hint of defiance in my eyes, ready to meet her questions. But she just scrutinized me closely, then nodded, accepting my answer. The heart of the sept. Ilona is neutral. Ilona jerked her head sharply toward the Colosseum and turned to walk away. I followed her sheepishly through the abandoned lot, a few paces behind. Stepping through the dim, spreading shadow that emanated from the towering building, I followed Ilona into the old Colosseum. The broken panes of glass from the numerous windows embedded in the Colosseum walls allowed sunlight to seep in from all sides, lazily painting glowing diamonds upon the packed soil. A thin, rusting gray staircase encircled the inner wall of the cairn, rising up to a balcony that will fill up with the rest of the sept during a moot. What's a moot? A gathering of the Garou to discuss matters of import. I see. But now stood empty. Spread out across the ground floor of the cairn, I could see the forms of various Garou from different tribes, an aura of menace surrounding them even in their human form. We ignored each other. While my sept in Afghanistan had been welcoming and tight-knit, a community of outcasts amidst a country predominated by a single religion, I had found the Warsaw sept to have a more defined hierarchy, one I was not a part of. Maybe it was for the best. Fun to see me learn about World of Darkness. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm reading, kind of. I do have some idea that from playing Vampire, but this is totally new to me, so I have to look at all the definitions. Also, hello, Paladin. Good morning. Good morning, Paladin. I did not wish to speak with them anyways, and perhaps it was better to be alone. As I observed which Garou were present that day, I noticed members of my own tribe amongst them. Okay, I get to pick my tribe now. Black Furies, a reputation for opposing injustice and escalating conflict. After joining the Black Furies, a fog spirit had granted me a gift, the Curse of Aelus, a thick, eerie fog that obscures sight and unnerves those within. Bone Gnawers, counter-culturalists who uncover what is hidden, secrets, passwords, and anything that provides useful and sometimes not so useful information. Streets tell stories, the ability to hear any conversations within a set area as if I'm standing right next to them. That sounds very useful. Glasswalkers, we value science and technology. In this new digital era that was brought with it new spiritual life, very essential. Doppelganger, the ability to transform into another human or werewolf. That sounds so cool. It's very different from vampire. Werewolf is bigger and way more complex. Werewolf does seem like there's a lot of systems in it. Shadow Lords, power and cunning. Might is what matters most in the fight against the worm. Guys, the ability to issue a command that cannot be ignored, forcing the person to perform an action. Silverfangs, strategists and leaders, the self-styled aristocracy of the Garou, Ilona's tribe as well. I had been in line to lead my set back in Afghanistan, but that had all fallen apart when we had left. An ancient compact is invoked and protection is received from otherwise hostile spirits. Yeah, I want to be a glasswalker. That's cool. One aspect in particular had attracted me to join the Glasswalkers. Technology. Oh, computers. Technology. The modern age meant that tools had become infinitely far more complex than any other time in history, and it was this very complexity that held my fascination. Drawing my gaze away from other Garou, I followed Ilona across the cairn, passing the very heart of the Colosseum, in which rested a remnant of the Sepp's former cairn from before the war. The intricately carved black marble capital of Romanesque column, whose broken, jagged end had been thrust into the ground. Above Gaia's soil could be read a line of Old Polish that had been inscribed heavily into the stone. I don't know how to pronounce this one. 𝑭𝒐𝒂𝒎 Let me work while you rest. Oh my god, that one Polish guy in my chat is gonna come in and be like, you just pronounced it very badly. For me, it has always meant one thing. We were defenders. We were defenders. We protected Gaia from the ravages of the worm. When the vision disappeared, reality returning as I realized Ilona had been addressing me. She was calling me by my werewolf name, the one I had chosen after my first change. The first time a human turns into their werewolf form and learns who they really are. 𝒌𝒂𝒎 meaning moon of a far-off planet, 𝒂𝒎 meaning powerful, Minu meaning afterworld, 𝒂𝒎 meaning benevolent spirit, 𝒂𝒎 meaning liberated and free. You know what, let's go with the moon theme, because we do have moon theme going on the channel. 𝒌𝒂𝒎 meaning moon of a far-off planet. Maybe it had been presumptuous, but I had imagined a kinship to Luna when I had chosen it. It had been a long time since I heard that name. It was a bittersweet feeling. It reminded me of joyful memories of home and family and friends, memories now tinged with the acrid stabbing of loss. You brought Khadijah's package then? Khadijah must have texted her earlier, pulling it out of my bag. Curiosity rose in me once more. Handed it over. My curiosity must have been evident when I handed it over, because a small smile appeared on her face. I imagine you would like to know what's inside. Taking the box in one hand, Ilona deftly opened it with a single slash of her dark green painted fingernail, revealing its contents. A severed finger, perhaps once human. It had become pure steel of a mottled, dark blue, bottle blue, with the tiny razor-shaped edges, like those of a knife jutting out indiscriminately around it. Why did Khadijah have that? I asked in horror. I sent Khadijah after a lesser bane presence, a malignant spirit of the worm, that had been sensed in the city, Ilona explained. She had tracked it down and slain it, sending me this for us to examine. She held it out towards me. What are your impressions of it? I examined it more closely. Where did this take place? I asked slowly. Ilona told me the address, a location near the Vistula River. I quickly grabbed my laptop. In a few minutes, had the security cameras for that spot. Ilona leaned in, her dark green eyes narrowing as the worm spirit showed up on the screen. A thing of cerulean steel, covered entirely in the same sharp razor blades as its finger. Turning abruptly about face, it stared directly into the camera, tilting its head. A second later, the screen went blank. As Ilona placed it into a pouch, the finger seemed to emanate with a final pulse of dark energy before she secured it with a snap. I wonder if this all could have something to do with the worm spirit I encountered earlier. Ilona's astute gaze bored into me. You seem like you have something to say. I'll tell her about it. Earlier, on my way here, there was a worm spirit. Shock stamped across her strong features as I told her all about the spirit I had encountered earlier. Ilona stood silent in contemplation, breaking in at last to slowly say, "This is becoming a worrying pattern now, when combined with yesterday's death and the recent accusations." "Nani? A death? Who died?" The words were forced out of my mouth as a rising wave of tangled memories pushed in on my mind. I took a deep breath. I calmed myself as I listened intently. "One of the Garou," Ilona said as a pained sadness flitted across her face. "We think it was by a worm spirit. The one Khadija defeated." "Possibly," Ilona shrugged, her brows knitting together in momentary uncertainty. "Hopefully. Right now, one of the glass walkers is investigating it, so we should know more soon." "What about the accusations?" I asked Ilona about the accusations as she hesitated. There have been rumors of attacks happening. Some feel the worm is responsible. Although the worm has always been a problem in Warsaw, what is happening now feels unprecedented. And as fast as we destroy the lesser worm spirits, others appear in their place, Ilona said wearily. "What do you think is causing it?" I asked curiously. "Perhaps a greater worm spirit. There is no definite proof, but something is certainly manipulating all these spirits. To what end?" She shrugged. "I cannot say for certain." Before I could ask more, another Garou came up to speak with her as she excused herself. I felt something stirring within me. For the first time in a long time, I felt a faint excitement stirring within me as I mulled over what she had told me. I lingered for a few moments, hoping to learn more, but when it became obvious Ilona would be busy for quite some time, I decided to just ask Victoria tonight instead. On my way out, I spied some equipment near a corner of the cairn that was kept for the use of all the Garou. "I don't know what this game is about. You're doing a good job." "Oh, thank you, Yamiz. I'm also learning about this game as well. It's tech equipment. Everything technology. Use technology 5 times during a playthrough. I got achievement. Tech equipment, laptops, surveillance systems, even a drone littered the cairn, evidence of the Garou's entrance into the modern era. I selected an item. I examined the items, putting one of them in my backpack. The infrared sensor. A motion detector. Could be useful for avoiding Khadija when she was trying to get me to be more sociable. I'm no idea. 𝑺𝒕𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒎. As I neared the entrance, the door slammed open as a Garou burst into the cairn, his overwhelming presence, accentuated by a fierce scowl that highlighted sharp features, instantly drew the eyes of everyone in the room. 𝑺𝒕𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒎, a charming and ruthless native Warsawianin hailing from a wealthy family, leader of the Mourning Wolf Father Pack. He was known as the 𝑺𝒐𝒄𝒊𝒂𝒍𝒔 of the Shadow Lords, Arun of the Mourning Wolf Father Pack. A Shadow Lord! A real-life elite, he had been expected to join the Silver Fangs, but he had surprised everyone instead when he had joined the Shadow Lords instead. Ilona alone continued to pointedly ignore him as he strode angrily up to her, the sunlight casting an ethereal glow upon his blond head as if anointing him as its avenging angel, whereas Ilona was quiet steel with the air of a five-star general. Andres, Andres, I feel like I'm pronouncing it different every time. Andrzej had a careless charisma and ruthless recklessness that had led to his becoming leader of the Wolffather Pack at a young age. His methods were brutally efficient. While he was a famed fighter, his methods were brutally efficient. I had heard rumors of how he had dealt ruthlessly with any worm spirits who stood in his way, a trait many admired in the Sept. Ilona, his voice was smooth with underlying contempt as she slowly turned to face him. Why have you not taken action yet? I looked around at the other Garou. I looked to see the other Garous' reactions, but to my surprise, none of them seemed as confused as I was. Ilona's icy voice cut through the cavernous room. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot do anything without proof. Andres' blue eyes grew calm with a rigid fury. Ever since these refugees arrived in this country, there has been report after report of them attacking Polish citizens. I listened. Reports? What the hell was he talking about? I listened in growing fury as he continued. They have burgled our country and... Can I say that on YouTube? Assaulted, but in the sexual way. Our women. Even the politicians have confirmed this. At this, Ilona interrupted, her voice cold. And clearly, you have not done your research properly, or you would know these claims were proven to be false. In fact, it is often the refugees who are the victims, as I am sure Samira can attest. She gestured to me as Andres turned slightly to face me, a derisive look on his handsome features. Ah, Samira, our very own refugee. Perhaps you could shed some light on what exactly your countrymen have been doing here? His light words seemed to hold an underlying meaning. They haven't been doing anything, which you would know as apparently you don't have any proof. What I know is that Emmerich had not been investigating them, he would be alive right now. His blue eyes blazed as I stared at him in confused horror, but before I could respond, Ilona interrupted. That's enough, Andres. Emmerich's death is still under investigation, but what we do know is that it certainly was not caused by a refugee. Now, until you do have any definite proof of their wrongdoings, her tone implied she thought this unlikely, then I considered this issue as dropped. With an air of frigid finality, Ilona turned her back on Andrzej, indicating the meeting was over. Andrzej momentarily looked furious before he calmed himself with a frightening suddenness as he gave a small mocking bow of his head. If that is what our leader commands. As Andres turned away, I caught a glimpse of his defiant bright blue eyes that indicated that while he may have acknowledged Ilona's authority this time, there would be trouble in the future. The other Garou seemed to be awkwardly looking anywhere but at us, as a hushed silence fell over the cairn after Andres had left. What the hell was that about? Emmerich was dead? Whoever that is. I had not known him very well, just that he was a glasswalker, while a part of me was reluctantly moved that Andres seemed to care so much about him. I still wondered why on earth did he think the refugees were involved. I wanted to ask Ilona, but as I glanced down at my phone, I noticed with a sigh that my job at 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 would be starting soon. Making my way towards the entrance, I turned to close the doors behind me when the ancient stone at the cairns caught my gaze once again. This time, I found myself unable to look away as a vision filled my sight. A new side of the cairn. While the cairn heart had once been seen with starry, all-filled eyes, now a different sight revealed itself. Broken hulls from shades of hazy gray smoke that formed into wounded Garou, blooded and broken. Yet despite the perhaps inevitable end, I watched as they gathered as one to fight. I felt a surge of pride. The vision wrapped around me with a slow, briny wave of intoxicating hope as it swirled before my gaze. And then, with a muffled stillness, the door shut me out and the vision vanished. Okay, hold on, I need to drink some water. Yum, 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 yum. Okay. Hurrying through the darkening streets of Warsaw across the cobblestone roads, I neared 𝑰𝒑𝒂𝒎, the bar owned by Khadijah's girlfriend, Victoria. The blazing lights and loud crowds of the pubs and restaurants that lined wide streets gave way entirely to dark shadows as I ducked round the corner of a building into a long, narrow alleyway. At the end, blood-red bricks formed the outline of an enormous wolf upon the wall, beneath which a solid black cast iron door stood firm, practically blending in with the alleyway at night. Near the entrance lingered a group of drunken middle-aged men. At first I thought they were 𝒂𝒎, but as I neared I saw they were humans, no doubt returning from the football match and stopping to urinate in the alleyway. Catching sight of me, they began to wolf whistle, the irony of which was not lost on me. Rats, literally. As I saw one poke its head out of a sewer grate, I willed it to help out. As I watched, rats began pouring from the sewers. The men stared at them for a moment, then began yelling as they all quickly ran away. Wait one sec. They all quickly ran away, stumbling over each other like a scene in an old comedy movie. I turned to go, but one man grabbed my arm. Judging by the noxious smell of his breath, he clearly had been too drunk to know what was happening around him. Looks like it's just you and me. The slurred, lascivious tone made me shudder. I tried to shove him off, but he just gripped tighter. Didn't you come to this country to be a... I don't think I can say that. Or are you going to try and convert us? He laughed raucously as rage suffused through me with a wrenching ferocity. A shapeshifter. Let's be the... Oh wait, I can't pick the other two. Well, I'm not gonna pick the other two. I'm just gonna... Near human from... Oh wait! I thought it was just regular human from. Never mind. I shouldn't have shapeshifted them, my bad. I felt my muscles spasm as they rearranged themselves. My jaw cracked and my mouth filled with blood. I clenched my fists and claws drove into my arms. When I rose, panting and sweaty, I was more than human. I was glabro, wolfish, strong, and scary. I towered above him. As I lightly twisted my now bulging muscular arm free of his grasp, even in his drunken state, he seemed to sense that the tables had turned, as fear blanched the haze from his face. I'll punch him. I punched him in the face. His jaw crumpled in, the blow throwing him several feet back into the wall, where he slowly slumped to the ground. My breath came in short bursts, the adrenaline still coursing through me. I shapeshifted back. Yeah! I did an achievement. Lesson deserved. Teach a lesson. Victoria was gonna be pissed. As the rage abated, I realized I should probably tell Victoria that I had just beat up some guy outside her bar. A conversation I was not looking forward to. I sighed as I turned towards the black iron door, opening it up as I opened the black iron door again and stepped inside, heading down the dimly lit stairwell into 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒂𝒎. A Gothic-style bar lined the wall immediately in front of the entrance, the vibrant, multicolored liquids on the blackwood shelves behind glowing in the dim light that softly illuminated the place. Cast iron stools and tables lined the wide space, which would soon be filled with rowdy, inebriated 𝒂𝒎 who came to party at 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒂𝒎. At the far end, an archway led to labyrinthian hallways in which were tucked small, secluded rooms where the 𝒂𝒎 could conduct tribe business. I occasionally joined the other glasswalkers. A small bevy of laptops marked the rooms where my tribe could be found. Thankfully, our interactions had already taken place online, so my Harano state had not affected our relationships too markedly. Above the bar itself hung small faded marionettes suspended from the ceiling that smelled eerily down at the bar patrons. They're kinda cute. I had even named a few of them, saying an eternal hello to morose George, who thankfully did not say hello back. The night was still early, and the bar was fairly empty, aside from Alexander, my pack leader, a few Garu I vaguely recognized, and Victoria, who nodded as she finished mixing a pint for Pat, or Dr. Patricia Myers, as she was formerly known, an intense white blonde, goth-looking woman who was sitting at the bar. I had befriended Pat when I was studying in Warsaw and reconnected with her after I had returned. I waved at her. She waved back with a subdued smile and troubled eyes as I ducked behind the bar. The back was crowded with cardboard boxes and supplies, and I had to shove a few out of the way to grab my apron from its hook. Pulling it on, I heard Victoria join me. Her London accent seemed especially thick today, as she regarded me with concern. Not like you to be late. She leaned against the wall, her tall, slender model's body somehow managing to make it look elegant. What's going on? How's it, Karen? I said, telling her a half-truth. I just could not deal with any more drama as I pulled on my apron, avoiding her gaze. She did not seem to sense anything was wrong, though, as she rolled her eyes. Oh god, Ilona probably had some other doom-gloom problem she wanted you to deal with, didn't she? Well, at least she picked a good night for it. It's been pretty slow so far. Victoria turned to head back. I breathed a short sigh of relief before joining her. Another wild night at 𝒂𝒂𝒒𝒆, mixing drinks and serving the rowdy Garu. I could bring Pat and Alexander their drinks, or take a short break with Victoria amidst loud music and boozy chaos. I mean, I just got here, so... I waved to Pat, so maybe I'll go and talk to Pat. Talk about grim tidings. Heavy rock music blasted in the background as I poured another beer for Pat. Handing it to her, she pounded it down before letting out a deep exhale as she heavily set the now empty glass back in front of me. I'm honestly impressed, but should I be worried? She let out a sharp, surprised exhale of laughter before shaking her head as her eyes dimmed once more. I leaned on my elbows facing Pat. Okay, now tell me what's going on. Pat swirled the heavy glass easily in her slim hand, staring down at it moodily. I don't suppose you've heard about Emmerich. I recalled the name Andrzej had said earlier as my heart dropped. The Garu who was killed. Pat's glossy eyes turned dark. That's the one. He was a glass walker and a friend of mine. God, I'm so sorry, Pat. She just nodded morosely, taking another heavy sip before continuing. Pat leaned closer into me, her expression serious. We're pretty sure his death was caused by a bane. A malignant spirit of the worm. A bane? I asked in confusion, recalling that Andrzej had mentioned his death had had something to do with the refugees. Samira! Victoria's voice carried over the noise as I turned to see her motioning to the gathering swarms of waiting customers. Sorry, Pat, I've got to get back to work, I said distractedly. Wait, before you go. She hesitated for a moment and plowed ahead. I really need some help with this. Do you think you could meet me tomorrow at 𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒂𝒎 Park? Wait, no. 𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒂𝒎 Park. Okay, if there's a slash, it's a wa. Hello, Sheriff Pumpkin. Welcome, Sheriff Pumpkin. How are you? We're doing reading. 𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒂𝒎. I was non-committal. I'll think about it. Possibly. I think about it. Her face filled with relief. Thank you, Samira. And if you can't, I completely understand. Just let me know tomorrow morning, okay? A gang of Garu began yelling at me for a round of beers, and I quickly agreed to text her the next day before hurrying back over. Okay, let's go bring Alexander his drink. Then we can rest with Victoria. Balancing a drink carefully through the wild, carousing crowd, I made my way towards the back of the bar, where Alexander sat alone at one of the tables. His long navy blue overcoat blended in with the shadows, while his eyes were fixed on the book in his hands, only looking up when I brought him his Cosmopolitan. The first time he had ordered his drink choice had surprised me, but his disdainful expression when I had questioned it had instantly shut me up. I had joined his pack when I first came to Warsaw. Why? Damn, there are so many things to choose. Not to say this one, but I feel like I've chosen so much for so far. Like, there were so many things, like, tribe, and now pack, patron, whatnot. I don't know. Okay, the baleful author Pack was known for being a fun-loving and mischievous, but coordinated savage fighters in battle. The Arcane Lynx were notable for its fierce independence and determination. The immortal Peacock were confident, bordering on arrogance, and penchant for skillful tech. I think baleful author. Seemingly cute and playful, otters could demonstrate a coordinated savagery and a desire for revenge if one of their kin had been hurt. Alexander had only been leading the pack for a few months when I joined. Although his features appeared mostly Korean, Khadija had told me he was half Polish and had spent his entire life here in Warsaw. He intrigued me. He had always seemed set apart from the other Garou, with his cool, collected appearance. Yet I had caught glimpses of a fierce rage in his blue eyes, which made me feel that perhaps he was the same as the rest of us. Alexander indicated the seat next to him, interrupting my thoughts. Do you have a moment? Sure. As my pack leader, I could not really deny a direct request. I glanced briefly at the bar, but Victoria seemed to have it covered for now as I sat down. Leaning in slightly, his tall frame half bent over the table, he began speaking in a low tone as he got straight to the point. There has been some trouble with the Sept recently, a divide that has only worsened in the past few months. Ilona has asked me to investigate further, and she suggested you may be able to help as well. How? I asked cautiously. Most Garou have already, explicitly or implicitly, chosen a side, but you have not. Oh, we're back to politics, I see. So who exactly is causing this divide? I asked, although I cynically thought that I had a fairly good idea of who it might be. Alexander's black eyes momentarily flared with a hint of some emotion I could not quite place, as he coolly answered, I'm assuming you know of Andres Skarzinski. Unfortunately, I said irritably. Alexander raised his eyebrows. You don't like him? Not after today. I told him what had happened as his eyes grew dark. That unfortunately does not surprise me. Alexander leaned forward, a piece of his dark silky hair falling across his face as he spoke. Listen, Samira, I believe that your particular help in this matter would be invaluable. Before I could respond, an intoxicated Garou stumbled by, bumping into her chair as his drink splashed all over the ground. He looked down at it morosely, before drunkenly careening off. Thankful for the interruption, I stood up. I should probably get back to work, I said hastily. Can I let you know later? Alexander nodded. Of course, although I must caution that time is of the essence. Please let me know by tomorrow morning, at the latest. I quickly agreed before squeezing my way back through the raucous masses of Garou to the bar. Despite myself, I could not resist casting a final glance back at Alexander. His features, usually filled with an aloof confidence, now appeared startlingly fierce as his intense blue eyes stared unseeing across the crowded room. Alright, let's take a break with Victoria. During a lull in the madness of the night, I managed to grab a short break. Leaning back against the counter, I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, feeling the cool steel pressing into my lower back. Victoria joined me. Leaning back as well as she let out an overdramatic sigh. Fudge me, I thought we'd never have a break. Can I get you a drink? I asked as Victoria grinned widely. You don't even need to ask. Gin and tonic, please, love. I went to mix her a gin and tonic, handing it over as she knocked back a large gulp, casually balancing the cup in one hand. She said, "You know you can make yourself one too." "Alright, free drink." I mixed myself a paloma. Alcohol was prohibited in Afghanistan, but in our sept we had been able to get it brought in via other garu, and I had developed a taste for it early on. Victoria looked out over the crowded bar, her brow furrowing slightly. "You know, something seems off tonight." She gave a quick shake of her head. "Not even tonight, really. The past few months have been really strange." I recalled things I had seen online as I slowly responded. "You're not wrong. In the Warsaw groups I'm in online, things have felt different, more hostile." She instantly nodded. "Hostile, that's spot on." "You know, I also can't help wondering if it has something to do with the triad. Our three cosmological forces of the universe. The worm, the weaver, and the wild. Once equal, chaos now reigns with the worm in ascendant. Corruption. Of course, we know that since the worm became ascendant, everything has been off the rails, and in the city especially, the wild has always had less of a hold." She paused. "But even in the weaver, whose spirits of order typically thrive in the city, has seemed different recently." "What do you think is the reason?" "A little of column A, a little of column B," she shrugged. "I think the worm and worm... I think that's a typo. I think the worm and worm both are being overactive, which spells trouble." And she hesitated, avoiding my gaze. "I think it's centered around all the recent changes in the city." "It's because of us, isn't it? The refugees." "No," she stated. She hesitated. "Then yes. I think the worm is doing what the worm does, taking advantage of the human greed and cruelty that already exists and manipulating it to make things even more effed up." Look at the guru. An uncharacteristic frown appeared on Victoria's face. "What makes me most convinced that things are especially bad with the worm is the Garou. There's been something really off about them." Before I could ask more, a customer approached the bar, drunkenly leaning against it as they began loudly singing the shot song. Victoria pushed herself off from the bar. "All right, enough of the doom and gloom. We've got people to serve." Her usual cheerfulness returned as she headed over to help him, but I could not take it off so easily. As the night slowed down, only a few inebriated Garou remained half propped up at the bar. I was pouring vodka into a glass when I heard a sudden commotion near the front door. A grim-looking police officer appeared at the bottom of the stairs, staring disapprovingly around the bar as Victoria headed over to him. I felt my body start to shake for a second. It was like back in the forest, back in Afghanistan. I inadvertently clutched my arm fiercely, trying to still the shaking. "Hello, Kamaru. Welcome." "Hey, are you okay?" A tentative hand placed itself on my shoulder. I looked up to see Alexander and Pat close by, twin looks of concern on their faces. I calmed myself. I took a deep breath. "Yeah, it's fine. Thanks." I turned to see Victoria exchanging a few words with the policeman, his expression unchanging. Eventually, he at last left the bar. Victoria approached me. She yanked me into the back. Victoria slowly turned to me, her normally cheerful expression dark and intense as she grabbed my arm and pulled me into the back. "What the F, Samira?" What do you mean?" "Oh, right, I beat up someone." I was gonna tell you," I said weakly as a cloud of anger grew on her face. "When? If the guy turned up dead in a ditch?" "No, he seemed fine. Well, mostly fine when I last saw him." "Listen, Samir, you've got one chance. One to tell me what the hell happened." I thought back on what had happened. Oh no. The thought of those men and how they had treated me filled me with fury once more as I told Victoria, what had happened? Victoria was sympathetic. Victoria's expression softened as she crossed her arm, heaving a deep sigh. Okay, I'm not saying it's right, but I also can't say I wouldn't have done the same. Look, Samira, how about you take 1 week off? He waved off my startled question. This is not a punishment. You've only got one other shift anyways. I can easily get it covered. You've had a lot going on, and I think a break will do you good. But I want to work. It's the only thing that distracts me. Victoria crossed her dark arms. I love that you like this job, but I'm insisting on this. Plus, if that bastard actually does remember something, then at least you'll be out of the line of fire. I reluctantly agreed, and she smiled at me reassuringly. Only 1 week, I promise. As we began to close the bar, I recalled Pat and Alexander's proposals, feeling my heart briefly lighten. Perhaps it would be enough to occupy my mind while I was away from the bar. Perhaps enough to chase away the nightmares. As I lay in bed once more, Luna's light streamed gently through the open window while my mind churned with the events of the day. I tried to calm the thoughts, to perhaps even fall asleep to a dreamless night for once. But it was not to be, for as the clamoring thoughts turned to a murmur that ebbed and flowed, it was not sleep that took their place, but a memory. Greetings and salutations. Okay. Greetings and salutations. Hello, Yoko. I think I need to drink more water. Welcome, Yoko. We're reading. We're doing our best to read. Where are we going? Tariq asked. I looked at him in surprise, shifting the weight of the baby in my small arms. After our village had been bombed by the Taliban, wielding weapons gifted to them years earlier by the United States, we had left the rubble of our home and the corpses of our parents and fled. My older brother should have made the decisions from then on, as the man of the family. But he had been in shock, barely speaking since that night, and had been forced to carry our younger brother Kazim across the rugged northern terrain. I'm not sure. That sounded better than I'm following my heart. This seemed to still him briefly into clarity. What do you mean you're not sure? I mean, I don't know. My voice tinged with rage as he stared at me as if struggling with himself before the clarity faded and the dullness returned as he looked away. I continued onward, the terrain becoming harsher and steeper as my thin legs carried us over rocky steps that turned into hills that turned into mountains. As we crested a peak, I drew in a sharp breath. The view momentarily painted a picture over my inner turmoil as I stared in awe at the valley before us, verdant fields caught between two mountain ranges of stone and snow and rubble. An azure river that matched the daytime sky ran lazily through it, a small village nestled alongside the flowing waters. Walnut trees and apple orchards dotted the valley floor, the fragrant scent of fruits faintly perfuming the pure mountain air. There, the place that was calling me. Home. Where I belonged, where I think I had always belonged. I knew that within there was a place I could finally call my own. Turning excitedly to share the good news with Tariq, I looked around at the now empty plateau. Where did he go? I turned back to look for him, but the mountains behind us were empty, bereft of life. As I searched, I felt a sudden emptiness in my arms. I stared down at the place where Kazim had just lain. I looked frantically around, dropping to my knees, scratching in the rubble, when the ground below me lit up with a sickly glow as I turned my head to stare up at the night sky. The starlit galaxy above transformed before my eyes with a frisson of static, like a glitched-out computer screen. What was that? As the stars began buzzing around like thousands of tiny flies, circling the ragged, gaping black hole where the full moon had previously resided. Where did Luna go? A Part of me wondered who Luna was, while the other stayed focused on the black hole as a faint rasping, scraping noise rattled ominously through the skies. A single insectoid claw curled delicately out of the black circle as terror filled my heart, the fear grasping frantically at my mind in screaming waves. More claws emerged, embedding themselves into the night sky as with a horrific speech. A massive inhuman face filled the unnatural gap. It stared down directly at me from the sky above as a wide, malevolent grin spread from end to end, revealing violently red, sharpened teeth, too many for its mouth. I stood my ground. It's not real. It's not real. I stood my ground as it rushed towards me, the creature's carapace of matted black fur writhing as it opened its maw, violently red teeth ready to swallow me whole. With a blinding suddenness, it disappeared, leaving only the night sky. As the sky faded to my softly moonlit room, I stared up at the ceiling, feeling a strange sense of calm. Something had changed. Oh hey, we finished the chapter. Okay. Man, that took a while. Let's see how many players made the same choices as you. You encountered a worm spirit in the form of a centipede, 12%. Oh! So less people took the bus. You entered the cairn through the main entrance, okay? You walked through the door. You engaged in a brawl. We punched somebody. You had an uplifting dream. 0% of players had a good dream? Damn, what be happening in their dreams? Why 0%? Okay, let me drink my coffee a bit. Yum 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 coffee. Chapter 2, the hunt begins. Actually, I'm curious, how many chapters are there? I didn't check before the stream. Finish chapter 1, finish chapter 2, finish it 3, 4, 5. Oh, there's 5 chapters? I see. At least 2. At least 2! Hello, TA. Welcome, TA. How are you? We just finished 1 chapter. Oh. Let's start. Oh, I got the achievement for finishing chapter 1 when I started chapter 2. The remnants of the dream remained with me, a sense of calm. For the first time since the border, I slept through the remaining hours of the night, a dreamless sleep of peaceful calm that lingered as I opened my eyes, sunlight streaming in through the blinds and bathing my room in a warm, welcoming light. From the living room, I could hear Khadija moving around, getting ready for work. I'm gonna talk to her. A breakfast spread before me again. This time, naan-e-rokhani, jam, cheese, and fried eggs, along with 2 cups of green tea. Khadija looked at me in concern. I'm so sorry, Samira. Victoria told me everything. How are you doing? I'ma hug the aunt. The adoptive aunt. That's... I could not help myself as I fell into her arms, hugging her tightly. Ah, that good, huh? She hugged me back as I felt a few tears slip out. Quickly blinking, I broke away, feeling embarrassed. Sorry. Why are you apologizing? It wasn't your fault that those assholes came after you. She grabbed my shoulders, and I think you handled it perfectly. Felt better. I let out a shaky laugh, feeling relief flood through me. Thanks, Khadija. She pulled me into another quick hug. I've got to go to work, but feel free to text or call me anytime, okay? I nodded as she headed out the door. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my phone to check it. Time to choose. 2 text alerts from Alexander and Pat flashed on my screen as I opened my phone. I read Pat's one, because I went to her first, and she seemed very sad, and Alexander's part seems to be more political. I read Pat's text first, sent a few minutes earlier. Hey Samira, are you still interested in meeting up today? If yes, then let me know and I'll send you the details of where to meet. Okay, fine, I'll open Alexander's one now. Hello Samira, regarding what I mentioned last night, are you available to meet up in Castle Square to discuss further? Why does he text like an old person? I didn't think he was that much older than me, but he sounded oddly formal. I remembered hearing he had attended a boarding school, so I suppose that accounted for it. I reread the messages, debating whose proposal I should accept. You know there are 24 hours in a day, right? You could do both. But this is a game. Time to choose. Pat has asked for your help in investigating the supernatural murder of Emmerich the Glasswalker. Alexander seeks to uncover the dark secrets behind Andrzej and the Wolffather Pact, and the growing divide within the Warsaw Set. You may only choose one investigative path. This choice will affect the remainder of the story. I made my choice. I explained earlier that I would help Pat with her investigation. I sent a quick text to her, then to Alexander to let him know I would be helping out Pat. He instantly responded, thanking me for letting him know and assuring me he understood. I began getting ready. As I stuffed some things into my backpack, Pat soon texted back, sending me a location and asking me to meet her there in an hour. 𝑺𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒎. I know this one with the mark, the L with the mark in it is a Y, and it's not an L. A light layer of pale snow graced the grounds of 𝑺𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒎. Yeah, I did it! 𝑺𝒕𝒓𝒂𝒎. Early spring grasses intermittently poking their heads through as if to test whether their early arrival would be welcome. It clearly was not, as I watched the snow briskly buffet them down. I continued to trudge forward towards the spot where I was to meet Pat. My friends had enjoyed coming here, but as a glass walker, I felt that laptops and grass lawns didn't really mix. When I first moved here, the ideas of parks had seemed so strange. When I had grown up, nature was wild, untamed. It existed the instant you left your door. How does it come to learn that /L is wa? Because the game has been giving me like Polish words because it's set in Poland, so it also gives the pronunciation. So I saw that a few words, even though it starts with an L with a mark in it, the L with the mark in it should be wa. Wa. Nature was about obtaining existence. And there was a beauty here. Once you left the main paths, the lush greenery enveloped you in its shelter, a far cry from the mountains that tested your strength, and if you failed, swallowed you whole. I let out a deep exhale, my breath hovering momentarily in the air, suspended in its final stage of life, before being whisked away by the greedy hands of the wind. Picking up the pace, I headed towards the palace on the Isle, a classicist structure that lay across a slender artificial lake. In the summer, vivid blues of the water and sky created a pleasing contrast with the cream-colored palace. Now, however, against the pure white of the snow, the faded patches and gray flaws stood out sharply, like the wrinkles of one of the few older men in my homeland, worn and weary from the horrors they had witnessed. Leaning against one of the marble Corinthian columns, Pat's black goth clothing created an even more vivid contrast, mitigated somewhat by her pale white hair and the snow that swirled wildly around her. Sorry. Although there were not many people out on this chilly day, her intense looks kept the ones who were there at bay. That rhymes! She was more than she appeared. Although Pat could be intense, something I liked about her. Once I had become closer friends, I had found that she also had a kind heart and a mischievous sense of humor. Dark blue waters stirred this way and that, the surface the plaything of the northern winds that swirled eagerly across it. It pushed against me as well, as if hurrying me towards my destination. As I approached, Pat turned her head, noticing me. She grinned at me. Let me drink a little bit more water. She gave me a wide grin, her intense demeanor instantly transforming. I walked gingerly across the wide-open courtyard in front of the palace, attempting not to slip on the icy surface as I greeted her. "Hi, Pat." She returned my greeting, noting my not-so-subtle look around. Her grin widened. "What, you don't like my meeting place? Come on, I'll explain everything on the way." Pat took off down the path that trailed alongside the lake, her stride confident and sure despite the icy surface. As we left the palace, I spotted the vibrant sapphire peacocks that roamed the park, elegant and stately, until they broke into a run that felt reminiscent of the gangly cranes near my village. The path soon moved away from the lake and its bitter winds as the forest slowly began to consume our view once more. The black tree branches canopied high overhead, bare except for the powdering of fresh snow that shone against the blinding azure sky. "I already mentioned about Emmerich," Pat began, then paused, a familiar look of pain flashing across her face as she took a deep breath. I gently prompted her. Does Ilona know we're investigating this?" I asked as Pat gave me a mischievous smile. "Worried about Mama Ilona?" She cut off my indignant response. "I'm just teasing you. Of course she knows. She's the one who wanted me to check with you." That surprised me, but before I could ask more, she continued. "Unfortunately, we don't know much. For the most part, Emmerich pretty much kept to himself." She laughed in laughing frustration. She sighed in laughing frustration. "The quintessential lone wolf. The only thing I do know is that he mentioned at the last Glasswalkers meeting that he had been investigating a worm spirit, and that he believed that somehow there was a connection to the refugees. And then last week, I ran into him at 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, where he told me that he had made a breakthrough. What was it?" I asked curiously. He didn't say. But whatever it was, she paused as the wind violently swirled around us, as if pushing us away from our destination. Pat shoved her windswept white blonde hair impatiently out of her face as she continued. "To be honest, I hadn't noticed it at the time as it seemed so unlike Emmerich, but he seemed almost afraid." The somber look on her face sent shivers skittering down my spine. Frankly, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. Her green eyes flashed with frustration. Emmerich was pretty darn strong. There's no way he should have been taken down that easily. I kept silent. I did not know Emmerich that well, but things happen when you're fighting against the worm, especially if you go off on your own. Pat abruptly turned off the path, leading us into a sparse, wooded area. My feet caught in the heavy snow as we slowly trudged the path through. A small frozen creek ran sharply alongside us, the ice blackened like a scar upon the white surface of this land. I ran through what Pat had told me so far. Although Emmerich's death was tragic, I could deny feeling a flicker of the old battle rage fill me once more at the thought of facing this bane. The sun blazed down, causing me to shield my gaze as it ricocheted off the sparkling white snow. After a few moments, I asked curiously, "Why me?" Pat blinked at me. "Why you what?" "Why did you ask me to help you out today?" I elaborated. "Well, you're my friend, first of all," she grinned. "Plus, Ilona suggested you might be able to help. I think she mentioned something to Alexander as well." I felt annoyed. I felt an inexplicable irritation. "She's not my effing parent." Pat grinned. "Yeah, but you know how she gets. She's a SEP leader. I think she wants to make sure everyone here is taken care of, or something like that." "We're here," Pat said suddenly as we entered a wide, snow-covered clearing. "Ooh, that's surprisingly Asian." Wazenki 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 Park stretched before us, dried trees rustling in the fierce wind as snow fell in rushes from its boughs. A splash of crimson red burst through the trees that I recognized as the park's Chinese pagoda, a multicolored building with a tiled roof whose, whose corners curled up at the ends. Pat walked over to a wide expanse of snow between a ring of sturdy pine trees. This is where it happened, she explained in a tired voice that carried on the wind, where Emmerich was killed. I pat her. I patted her arm awkwardly as a smile broke across her face. Thanks, Samir, but I'm alright. So, who found him then? I asked. We did, the Glasswalkers. He was supposed to attend a Glasswalker tribe meeting in the morning, but never showed. She brushed her hair aside, looking suddenly worn. Yeah, I'm also a Glasswalker, but she keeps mentioning Glasswalker as if, like, I'm not a Glasswalker. That's kind of weird. He's never missed a meeting. In fact, he's pretty pedantic about it, so I triangulated his phone and noticed he was here in the park. We all came here and that's how we found him. I need water. She stared at the ground. Humans didn't notice anything? Pat shrugged. I mean, probably not, or they would have notified the police, right? I looked at the piled snow. Wait, when was this? A few days ago, she responded as I looked at her in disbelief. A few days ago? It snowed since then. Why didn't you come back earlier? I snapped back. Oh, did it lower my went from loyal to friendly. Fudging hell, calm down, Samir. We did come back later that day to investigate. Oh, I felt foolish. Sorry. She just snorted irritably. Did you find anything when you returned? I asked tentatively. It wasn't there, but they found evidence of the fight between him and the Bane. Why are we back here if you're already looked? You're a ragabash. Like me, we tend to be a bit more cynical, she grinned. And sometimes we see things that other people don't want to see. Plus, you have more specific insight. I knew what she meant. If Emmerich was investigating something to do with refugees, then who better to help than someone who was also a refugee? Pat seemed to sense what I was feeling and hurried to add, but if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be. I won't be offended. Yeah, it's fine. Everyone's just stereotyping me. I smiled at her and she relaxed. I leaned down, brushing aside the snow as I examined the spot where Emmerich had fallen. I checked the cameras. Was there any cameras in this area? I inquired, looking up at Pat. She flashed a grin and suddenly, hey, who do you think I am? She pointed to a camera high up on the post. I already hacked them, but her grin faded. Fortunately, someone had already wiped the cameras from that night. Our eyes locked as my face grew grim. There was no mindless killer then. I took another look around the area. Evidence of the battle that had taken place still remained throughout the area in broken tree branches and splatters of blood across the white birch bark. Emmerich had certainly not gone down easily. I told Pat about everything I had found as she mulled it over, her eyebrows drawn down in thought. Pat had something to show me. There's something else. Something about the way she said it made me deeply uneasy as I asked hesitantly what it was. Photos of Emmerich's body from when we found it. But you don't have to look at them if you don't want to, she added hastily. I will look at it. I'll look at the photos. I did not want to, but I reluctantly agreed to take a look. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through her photos until she had reached pictures of Emmerich's body. I examined the rest of the photo. Pat swiped to the right as a picture of his face appeared. A look of horror was frozen in time upon his features as chills ran down my spine. Emmerich was older and had fought many foes. What had so scared him about this one? What I really don't get, though, is why he was here, Pat said suddenly, a puzzled look settling on her face as she put away her phone. What do you mean? Why did he come back here to 𝑺𝒐𝒄𝒊𝒂𝒍𝒔 Park? Pat explained, there really isn't anything to do with the refugee crisis here, unless he came from somewhere else. What we need to do is find where he was coming from. which unfortunately will not be easy due to all the snow. She grimaced. Don't worry, I'm sure we can figure it out. I sounded more confident than I felt as I looked around. I'm a tree! I jumped, grabbing onto an overhanging tree branch as I swung myself up. Clambering up the branches, I finally reached the top as I surveyed the area. The traces that we had found pointed in one direction, and my eyes followed the invisible path. There were no monuments, nothing in a way that could indicate where he had come from, only the edge of the path. I climbed rapidly back down, jumping in front of Pat as I relayed what I had seen. Then it must be somewhere outside the park, she said as we set off. We headed out one of the gates, not wanting to draw attention to ourselves by leaping the fence. Returning to the end of Emmerich's trail, we stared around nonplussed at the street. Where next? I thought hard. He was investigating the refugees, right? So there must be some building around here related to that. I pulled out my phone, checking the map as I exclaimed, there it is, a refugee shelter. And that must be it, Pat said, a look of excitement crossing her face as we headed off. We arrived at the shelter, an unpresuming building of faded white paint with dirty glass windows. It looked barely large enough for one family, but I could guess there were at least several crammed in there. It made me sad. I had someone to stay with, thankfully, but for everyone else they only had this, a temporary shelter from which they would soon be forced to move on. As we headed toward the front door, Pat grabbed my arm. Wait, we need some sort of plan first before we just go barging in. Let's put together a plan. Together, we decided it made the most sense for me to pretend that I was looking for aid. The plan for me was to don a hijab, and I tried to ask for help. Fortunately, I had one stuffed internally in my backpack out of habit. Opening the door, a heavy, creaky affair, I stepped inside. Conversations momentarily paused, then resumed with an increased fervor as I looked around the crowded room. I spoke with the people in the refugee shelter. Let's talk to the worker first. Hi, can I help you? After waiting near the front desk for several minutes, a Polish woman with a kind smile, tired eyes, and a name tag labeled Agnieszka approached me. I had heard of refugee workers who were less than helpful, which always made me wonder why they got into this line of work, a power trip perhaps, or something that made them feel good about themselves, or at least better than the people they were helping. Thankfully, she seemed the exact opposite of the sort, and she asked me how she could help. I'm looking at a friend of mine, Emmerich. 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒍𝒔. She turned to me in surprise. Emmerich 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒍𝒔. Ah, Emmerich, that tall fellow. I remember him, though be careful who you talk to. Some of our residents seemed upset after all of his questions. Questions? What about? Something to do with that VX place they all work at. Though I can't say I'm surprised. I've picked up a few things, and it seems like a very nasty job. But I suppose work's work, she sighed. Let her go. Talk to the Afghan woman. One of the Afghan women beckoned me over to come sit. Her features were covered with a niqab, while her eyes revealed a mixture of kindness and wariness. Even though I had a very different upbringing than the rest of my countrywomen, it was nice to be amongst my people once more as I sat on the carpet next to her. Speaking in Dari, we exchanged greetings as she introduced herself as Mashal. After chatting for several minutes, I turned the conversation. What will you do next? I asked what she planned to do next, and she grew worried. My husband heard from Antoni, the truck driver who brought us here, about a job at a factory. VX, they call it. It's one where many people have gone, but we have heard the conditions are terrible. She shrugged fatalistically. But what choice do we have? We crossed it at night. That awful wall is being built, but we were able to find a way around it. We then found shelter with a Polish person who hid us from the guards, Mashta. From there, we took a van to get to Warsaw. She shook her head angrily, but at that Antoni, he charged us nearly all the money we had left. She looked resigned. Now we have no choice but to work at that horrible factory. The Congolese woman. One of the women was sitting by herself and flashed me a wide, friendly smile as I approached her, introducing herself as Nisimir. As we began talking, I asked her about her experience. How did you cross the border? I had been living in Russia. I moved there from Congo to support my family by teaching French and English. But with the situation there, I wanted to leave, so they facilitated the process for me to get the visa and travel through Belarus. She leaned back, but the border guard almost didn't let me pass even with the visa. He thought it was a fake. I almost had to use that truck driver they all use, Antoni. He takes all your money to get here and then forces you to work at the horrible VX factory. She shook her head in disgust, but I was lucky and they let me in eventually. I asked about Emmerich. I inquired if she had met Emmerich. Emmerich, oh, they're not too friendly about him here. I looked at her in surprise. Really, why? She lowered her voice. He was asking a lot of questions about that VX factory. Sounds like bad news to me, she shuddered. What do you mean? I asked as she looked uncomfortable. I probably shouldn't say, but apparently the man who told Emmerich about it, well, let's just say he hasn't been heard from since. Her brown eyes turned serious. If I were you, I'd stay far away from it. A sudden glass shattering made us look as shards of glass blasted across the room. The horrified silence that followed it was broken only by the cry of a small boy holding up his arm, a piece of glass embedded in it. I don't have medicine, so I can't really help, so I'll go outside and check out. I ran outside with Pat, noting with relief before I left that the boy's mother was taking care of him. I slammed open the door to see 3 teenage boys standing near the window, laughing and pushing each other playfully as one tossed the brick up and down his hand in anticipation of the next throw. Fury rose within me. Oh, hello, Mississippi Gonzo. Welcome, Mississippi Gonzo. We're reading. At the sight of me, they nudged each other, laughing. I'ma punch him. I ran at the one with the brick. Racing forward, I wrenched the brick from his soft putty hand and threw it angrily on the ground. They all looked taken aback, clearly not expecting that. That one now turned to me as he picked up the dropped brick, holding it up in a comically menacing manner. So you don't like us breaking those windows, huh, refugee? Why don't you do something about it? Police are on their way. I lied. This seemed to scare them, though the one with the brick tried to hide it. Yeah, who cares? I freaking do, one of them muttered as the rest murmured in agreement. Yeah, fine, we've done what they paid us to do. The boy tossed the brick away as they all turned to leave. Follow them. We need to follow them, I said decisively. Pat nodded, her eyes gleaming. Someone paid them to do this, and I want to find out who. We set off down the road after the boys, keeping a close distance as we watched them. It might be a dead end, but I hoped it could lead to more information about Emmerich's murder. Eventually, the group split off, with the majority going in one direction, and one of them, John, going off in another. I followed John. Or Jan. After Pat left to follow the group, I headed off after Jan. To my dismay, he grabbed the bike and took off down the road. There was no way I could follow him in my helmet form. Shapeshift time. I will be a regular old wolfie. I was a wolf. My body doubled down in pain. My arms and legs cracked and twisted. My skull fractured and reset itself in a different shape. Fragments of bones crawling under the skin. My skin was rippling and sprouting fur. I howled in agony. When the pain subsided, I was Lupus, a wolf, seeing the world in smells and sounds. With a growl, my form shifted as I fell to all fours, feeling my paws against the harsh concrete. As Jan took off, I ran after him. the wind rustling through my fur. I picked up the pace in order to keep up with his bike, and until eventually we reached the edge of the city. The scenery around us grew lusher. Trees replaced buildings, and I breathed in the fresh air, resisting the urge to howl. But what was he doing out here? My heart sank as I wondered if he was simply returning home. The scenery rapidly changed again. As he turned down a tarmac road, the surface smooth as the black asphalt shimmered mesmerizingly in the bright sun. Jan turned off the road, stowing his bike in the woods. Running forward, I followed him until at last he stopped in front of a fence stretching endlessly on either side. The top of a gleaming pristine building, hovered in the skyline to the right, while to the left, gray noxious smoke belched up into the air. Approaching the fence, Jan waving his hand in front of one of the security cameras. What the hell? We waited for some time when a man abruptly appeared in front of him. Jan jumped and I nearly did too, wondering how I had not heard him approach. His dark business suit undoubtedly meant he came from the building behind him as he began conversing with the boy. Unfortunately, they were too far away for me to hear. I leaped into a tree. Sitting back on my haunches, I waggled my tail as with one enormous leap, I standed atop a thick branch in one of the trees overhead. What part of "don't come back here" did you not understand? Their voice had the smooth, buttery tones of a businessman, but there was dissonance to it that made me wince. I was trying to get a closer look when I heard them say, "especially as you seem to brought a wolf with you." The man turned to stare right at me, his eyes flashing red. I leapt forward. Acting on instinct, I leapt forward, pushing Jan out of the way just as the man swiped down at him with a grotesque reptilian claw. Jan immediately sprinted away from there, but the man just smiled at me in amusement. I'm gonna attack. I slashed at the man with my claws, feeling a returning pain in my side as I yelped. I looked up to see the man's hand transform into a reptilian claw, his amused expression now one of fury as he glared at the blood dripping from the wound I had inflicted. I ran. Jan was safe, and if this was the bane Emmerich had fought, then it seemed unwise to handle it on my own. I shapeshifted back. Once I was out of the woods, literally and figuratively, I shapeshifted back. They do quite the job of describing transformation. Yeah. Bone crackling. Fishing my phone out of my pocket, I sent Pat a quick message. Within seconds, she responded as we arranged to meet. Pat and I met up back near Wazenski Park. I told her what had happened. Finishing with, "The boy Jan is safe though." Pat's face sagged with relief. "That's good news at least." Her brow furrowed. "Listen, when I followed the group of boys, they mentioned something about the VX Corporation. That must have been the factory you went to. I've heard that name." I said in surprise, "That's the one they mentioned at the refugee shelter." Pat cursed. "So they're paying those idiot kids to harass the shelter so that the refugees feel like they have no choice but to work at VX Corporation." "I'll do some more digging tonight," Pat said as a savage gleam appeared in her eyes. "Then tomorrow we're going back to VX Corporation to find out what the F is going on." I thought of the former. My mind kept returning to the former. What's the former? Why is it not showing me? As I immediately agreed, an ember of anger sparking within. We needed to find it. Oh, it's the guy, the monster. If it was the one who had killed Emmerich, then we needed to find it and destroy it. Pat and I said our goodbyes before going our separate ways. She to report to Ilona, while I headed home, my mind whirling in a tumultuous haze. The evening sky overhead was suffused with floral tones of pinks and purples. The white clouds smeared across it like cream cheese over a pink baguette. "So yummy!" Stopped to stare up at the sky, feeling something within me slowly unknot as I watched the twilight horizon. When I eventually resumed walking, the events of the day now replayed in my head with a new clarity, and as the night sky began its gentle sweep over the horizon, I felt my steps unconsciously turning in a different direction. Velveteen darkness filled the streets. Luna, high overhead as in my imagination, she began to speak to me, encouraging. A warming fire burned within as kindness flowed from the encouraging words I imagined as I picked up the pace. At last, my destination came within sight. Owadzki Cemetery, the old necropolis of Warsaw. It stretched wide over several blocks of the city, surrounded by a wall of the same red brick that characterized much of the city's older architecture. The corner I approached was embellished with blind arcades flanking a black cross, over which could be seen the marble and granite crosses and statues that topped many of the graves. Walking past the imposing white Gothic church, I neared St. Honorata's entrance. The black iron gates were framed by white marble, the left side guarded by a statue of presumably St. Honorata herself, holding a shield and a sword, encircled by a snake. An odd choice for a cemetery, I'd always thought. Unfortunately for me, the iron gates were already firmly locked for the night. Not that that would stop me. I climbed the brick wall. Too late, I noticed a camera pointed directly at me. Damn it. I smashed it with one hand, hoping the shadows had kept me hidden, and I jumped down into the necropolis. Are you gonna get arrested for trespassing into a cemetery? Even during the day, this place felt odd, as if the dead had overtaken the life of the forest, or the forest had grown up around the myriad of graves. The vibrant, breathing life of the forest, feeling like a cruel mockery of the mortals that now lay interred at its feet. Fortunately, winter and the darkness of the night moderately assuaged the clash between the living and the dead, and the thick snow creating a unity between the dormant trees and stone graves. I felt at peace. The darkness swept around me in a warm, peaceful embrace as I walked through the shadows. The cacophony of the city traffic muted to a dull murmur, and I felt myself relax in the invisibility of the night. Free from the clawing cares and concerns of the living, I walked quietly along the snow-covered paths, my mind returning, as it often did, to home. In Afghanistan, cemeteries had become commonplace. My brother had even told me in Kabul they were running out of space for the small, thin slabs of granite that marked the thousands who died. Cemeteries there were filled with people. Children ran among the jagged stones, but not to mourn or play, but to earn money by sprinkling water on the graves, a traditional practice believed to absolve the dead of their sins. Owadzki Cemetery could not be more different, with its quiet solitude and ornately carved monumental graves. My attention was caught by one in particular as I walked past. A child. A child reading a book. The snow had melted on him, leaving lines reminiscent of tear marks down his face. As I watched, his stone hand slowly moved, turning the page of the book as he read onwards. Reading rapidly, I stared as the statue resumed its original state. I quickly hurried onwards, shaking off the unsettling feeling. At last, I drew near to the place where I had buried Kazim's ashes. In Afghanistan, Kazim would have been buried in a grave in the traditional way, but the... how do you pronounce this again? 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒆 𝒂𝒂𝒎 had no choice but to send his ashes to me. It was probably illegal to bury him here, but I did not care. This country had taken enough from me. The least they could do was allow me a beautiful, peaceful place to lay him to rest. I hoped he'd like it. When I had buried him here, the peaceful grassy knoll covered in small white wildflowers, nestled between the whispering green trees, had seemed the perfect place. Yet now the snow covered all, temporarily trapping that life in his frosty hands. I took a step forward, then paused, hesitant to break the pristine pall. I sat on the ground. Ignoring the wet snow that seeped into my clothing, I took a seat on the white ground near where I had buried. I must cry. Tears poured unchecked down my face, my vision blurring as I let them go. I felt calm. As if the tears that had flowed out of me had carried some of my despair with them. At last I got up, wiping the snow off of me as I headed back through the cemetery. Retracing my steps, I felt my pace quicken as an eerie oppression filled the cemetery. The dark trees with their dead arms, stark against the light of Luna, bent threateningly inwards as if trying to clutch at the bone-white snow-covered path that stretched ahead in a seemingly endless line. I quickly looked away, focusing instead on the stolid stone gravestones. 𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒊𝒂𝒍𝒔 and Mare, 1970 to 2001. Why was there an Afghan man buried here? My astonishment grew as I read the names of all the other graves, all people from my country. A chill shivered along my spine as I read the names and dates: 1960 to 1979, 1980 to 1992, 1860 to 1880, 1991 to 2001. The casualties of the wars brought by the British in the 19th century, the Soviets in the 20th, the Americans in the 21st, repeating endlessly upon the gravestones of jagged slabs that covered the necropolis in rolling dusty hills. I looked quickly back to the path, trying to regain reality, but it had disappeared. The dark trees now dripped with shadows, their thick, petrified branches crowded to a mere arm's length away. The white of the path up ahead had been consumed by an inky black darkness that suddenly raced towards me, reaching up, grasping at my arms, obscuring my vision till all was dark. Then a sudden blazing white as I blinked against it. I stared around blankly at the truck back I sat in, wedged betwixt other women and their children as we rumbled closer to the border between Afghanistan and Iran. Samira, how much further? 𝒂𝒎𝒄𝒊𝒂𝒍𝒔 asked quietly at my side. I don't know. He looked disappointed, but subsided back into silence as the truck rumbled on. I understood his frustration. We had already been traveling for weeks on a journey that had begun, in turn, weeks before that. Started from the moment we had heard that the American government had left our country, abandoning us to the Taliban. Although the Panjshir Valley had been free from their rule during their first invasion, we knew it was only a matter of time before they would come for us, so they had. Our sept had scattered, some to fight, some to ask for aid, some to leave to join septs elsewhere. I had wanted to ask for aid. I had wished to travel to other septs nearby to see if they could help us. Chances were slim, but at least I would be doing something. My older brother, Tariq, who was residing in Kabul, had wanted Kazim to come to him. I ignored his order. He was probably furious, but if it meant Kazim would be safe, then I did not care. The days had melded into one in the journey from our village to Herat, the smuggling hub. I had talked with the other woman during the trip, listening to their stories of violence. Forced to move in with their in-laws while she waited for her monthly breeding to come. One woman had faced constant violence as they beat her into submission. I wanted to rip them apart, but all I could do was listen. It was hard hearing those stories of lives so completely different from my own. I wished I could help, but all I could do now was hope that they would have a better life away from here. The truck rumbled along, shaking us in our seats as I considered my choices. After Herat, we would have the choice to go to either Khorasan or Țăranj in order to cross the border into Iran. Hello, welcome, Spirit Ninker. We are reading. We are doing good. My voice is a bit tired, but I'm aiming for 3 hours, or at least until the end of this chapter. Least likelihood of capture. Let's swim across the river. Yeah, Khorasan. I would go to Khorasan. I was confident in my chances of carrying us both across the Hari, rather than encountering the Taliban with their guns. The storytelling had long died out now. sapped by the weariness of the long trip, a weariness that settled down in my bones as I closed my eyes, the sounds of travel creating a jarring rhythm that at last soothed me to sleep. Opening my eyes, I looked out across the Hari River. We had arrived. It was time to cross. Something seemed off about this, a faint stirring of my consciousness that quickly died away as I watched the rushing waters, the white crests of the rippling waves vivid against the deep dark waters that lay beneath. 𝒂𝒎 looked fearfully at the river. I'll keep you safe. I hugged him to my side reassuringly as he relaxed. We leapt in together, beginning to swim as the current beneath us pulled gently at our feet. A man swam past us, smooth and confident, as he neared the other side, and then he was gone. 𝒂𝒎 and I stared at each other in shock that grew to horror as all around us the others slowly disappeared, pulled beneath the waves by something below. Swim! Swim! I yelled to 𝒂𝒎 as we started frantically paddling to the other side. As we at last made it to shore, gasping for breath, we pulled ourselves out and we stared aghast at the now empty waters. I think everyone's dead. I don't think that we should bother. We left. As we left, I glanced back. The waters dark and ominous as the moonlight slowly faded. 𝒂𝒎 was safe, but the others. Opening my eyes, the snow. Oh, I finished chapter 2. Damn. The snow-covered necropolis appeared before me once more. The chilled stillness of the cemetery followed me as I turned away from the stone forest of the dead and back to the city streets of the living. Alright. It's kind of like a visual novel with choices to be made. It is. It's reading. Oh my god. Okay, let's see. 30% of people trusted Pat. 30% of people spoke to Nismir. 100% of people followed Jen. That's an interesting statistic. 100% of people saved Jen, and 54% of people went to Kosa. Let's see. Okay, chapter 3. I think I'll try and go by this like a few more minutes. Chapel? Why did I say chapel? Chapter 3. Infiltration. There are 5 chapters. I don't know how long the chapters are. But what if I read it too fast? What if I read it too fast? Now I'm puzzled. Hi, Spirit Nighter. Yeah, hi, Spirit Nighter. Alright, we'll read a bit more. VX Corporation. Chapter 3 already? That was fast. Yeah, I don't know why chapter 2 was so short, but chapter 1 felt really long. Are most visual novels with choices to be made? Not necessarily. Some of them are kinetic, which means like it's just a visual novel. You just get the visual and the novel part. Neat stats, everyone tried to save them. Yeah! Despite the unsettling dreams of the previous night, my body at least had felt refreshed upon waking, thanks to the powers of the Guru. Heal. Thanks to the powers of the Guru, I had woken up with my wounds from the day before healed. I reread 𝒂𝒎's note that she had left on the counter for me as I hurried across the city to meet Pat, the early morning gloom feeling even more somber than usual. Let's move. A gathering of the Guru to discuss matters of import. Oh, I see. Moot tonight at the cairn. Hope you can make this one. Maybe I was reading too much into it, but her phrasing of this one seemed a bit pointed, which was fair, perhaps fair considering I had been absent from the moots since my return to the city last autumn, a fact I am sure had only served to increase my popularity amongst the other Guru. My mind wandered back to my university days, and the moots in Warsaw I had attended during that time. Annoyingly intense, I had spent most of the time on my phone, trying to tune out the increasingly deafening arguments of the other Guru. Our moods in Afghanistan were of a different affair. Although every Guru had a voice regardless of age or gender, the deeply ingrained hierarchy of respect still marked our meetings. Both had the pros and cons. Both had their pros and cons. My sept in Afghanistan had felt like a steady march, perhaps slow on occasion, but efficient, while the moods in Warsaw, on the other hand, were a rapid, roaring train, where you would certainly arrive at a destination. But you did not always know when or what that would be. I felt my resolve strengthen. The thoughts of the moods filled me with an inner strength as I recalled the time when I had let myself speak freely. I reread her note once more, contemplating what to do. You know what, let's go. Let's extend the time. For the first time in a long time, I felt inclined to attend the moods. I felt my heart lighten at the thought of being amongst my kin once more. Oh wait, no. I thought, oh, it's in the future I will go to the mood. I thought it was now. Okay. As I neared where Pat and I planned to meet, my thoughts turned to 𝑭𝒂𝒎𝒂𝒎. The events of the necropolis had nearly pushed it out of my mind, and I had collapsed into bed as soon as I arrived home. For once, a dreamless sleep. Yay, more health. I wondered wryly if my consciousness had a once-per-day nightmare limit. Whatever it was, I had woken up feeling well-rested. During breakfast, however, I had remembered and managed to quickly scroll through the company's website. I had searched the IT page. I had even managed to take a look at the IT page, mentally filing away the name of their department head, a woman by the name of 𝒂𝒎𝒂𝒂𝒎. As I turned the street corner, I spied Pat up ahead, the early morning gloom wrapping around her like a mournful shroud. We needed to find the formal. Within the walls of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒎 lurked the formal. Okay, there we go. Fomori are a melding of human and bane and a result of long-term possession. I see. Okay, so it's like a possessed guy. I was determined to defeat it. The creature had murdered Emmerich and nearly killed a young boy. And he was paid to harass some refugees, but I guess he's still a teenager. And I was determined to find and destroy it. She briefly returned my greeting before immediately taking off at a brisk pace. Her face was drawn as she turned to me and said, "Listen, Samira, last night I went back to Emmerich's place. We had already gone through it before," she added, "the day after he was killed. However, with everything we had learned, I thought maybe there was something else we could find. Maybe something about the 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒂𝒎 we had overlooked." When I got there, however, the place had been completely ransacked. Torn cushions, destroyed furniture, her eyes grew grim, and what's worse, Emmerich's laptop, the thing I'd been hoping to find the most, was missing. "And you already checked his laptop? Why didn't you keep his laptop?" She sighed. "We had, but Emmerich's a glasswalker, and the security on that freaking thing was no joke. None of us had time to properly break into it, which apparently was a mistake. I searched around as best I could," she continued, "but there wasn't anything left that would be helpful." She sighed with frustration. After I returned home, I did some research on 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒂𝒎, hoping to find something online. I could now see the dark circles shadow under her eyes as she continued. Unfortunately, there wasn't much there either. They had a website, of course, but it was full of nonsense, terms like high-tech innovations and cutting-edge research. Pat looked exasperated. "And what was this cutting-edge research?" She threw up her hands. Nothing they could specifically say, of course. We lapsed into a brooding silence as we continued our journey. Towering skyscrapers eventually distorted into rows of cozy suburban houses and snow-covered pine trees as we neared the outskirts of town. Oh, fancy building. As the trees thickened and the rushing of cars gave way to the raucous cries of woodland birds, our pace grew slower and more cautious as the massive complex of 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒂𝒎 came within sight upon the far horizon. Getting inside would be no easy feat, and I felt the long-suppressed trickster side of me stirring eagerly as various strategies began forming in my mind. At last, we found ourselves inside the stretch of woods that surrounded 𝒂𝒂𝒎𝒂𝒎. the moss-coated trees and snowy ground reminding me of another time. I shook the thoughts away. Viciously. This was not the time to wallow in the past. I caught up with Pat, who had been obliviously clearing away branches in our path up ahead. Pat held up a cautionary hand. Creeping forward, we approached the forest's edge, coming to a halt as we viewed the sprawling facility from our hiding place in the woods. The black mesh chain link fence that surrounded it stretched as far as I could see, topped with three vine-like lines of glinting barbed wire that made my stomach knot. We headed quietly towards the front until we came upon the main entrance, a large gate that occasionally slid ponderously to the left to admit sleek cars in and out. To its right was what appeared to be an employee entrance with a guard box situated next to it. Formally dressed employees passed in and out, swiping keycards as the gate opened and closed swiftly behind them, like the maw of a creature swallowing and disgorging its prey. "All right," Pat whispered. "What's our plan for getting in?" I don't have persuasion or sneak, but I think sneaking makes more sense. Pat and I headed towards the back. This seemed the best path, as it seemed unlikely the refugees we had met were entering in through the ostentatious front entrance. Pat and I made our way around the side of the factory, through the frosted woods, our steps crunching in the snow as we followed the chain link fence that stretched like a skin around the enormous, bulbous complex. I grew cautious. After yesterday, I grew increasingly cautious, knowing that somewhere around here the former was lurking. We finally reached the back entrance, an open pair of gates above, which a pair of security cameras keenly surveyed the tired-looking employees that trickled in as they scanned keycards. The plan. "What's your plan?" whispered Pat. Steal a keycard." "We can just pretend that we're one of the employees," I said, pointing out someone walking up to the employee entrance. "We'll wait till someone leaves, steal their keycard, and we're in." Pat agreed. "That might work," Pat said slowly. "Worth a try, I suppose." We waited until a lone employee was on the path, a middle-aged woman with tired lines etched into her face, which instantly made me feel a pang of guilt of what we were about to do. Pat distracted her. "I'll distract her while you grab the key," Pat whispered. Before I could agree or disagree, Pat had left the woods, casually picking up the pace until she was walking alongside the woman that she began speaking with. I followed behind them, my attention focused on the key card sticking out of her bag. I'll just grab it. "Yeah, I got an achievement. Use athletics 5 times during her playthrough." I walked quickly past her, reaching into her purse as fast as I could as I grabbed it. She must have been tired, for she did not appear to notice what I had done. "I'll be damned, that actually worked," Pat said, shaking her head as we met back up in the woods. "We did it!" We watched as a few moments later the woman hurried back down the path looking worried. I stifled another pang of guilt as Pat said, "You better get going now then." "Better get going." I looked at her, belatedly realizing a major flaw in my plan. "Oh crap, what about you? Don't tell me we're gonna have to do that again." "No, it's too risky. Don't worry though, I was planning to go in another way." She pulled out an old phone, holding it up to me just as the face of a spirit poked out of it. I blinked in surprise as the shimmering mass of binary code and vibrant veins of electricity. My view of Pat's skills grew. I knew that thinking engine spirits could be fickle and difficult to bind to service. To have one like this willingly come to aid when called was an impressive feat indeed. The thinking engine spirit buzzed softly from the phone as Pat explained. "Neither of us want to end up in jail after this, obviously, so my plan is to use this guy to sneak in through a side door, and then once we're in, to erase our presence from security cameras. Why don't I come with you?" That makes more sense. "Wait, why didn't I just come with you then?" I asked with confusion. I considered that, but we came here to get information on VX Corporation. If one of us can get in through the back entrance and see what this place is about, then that's our best bet. Pat headed off on her own while I made my way through the security gate. A tumbling ball of nervousness roiled in my stomach as I approached the gate guard. I tried to exude confidence as I swiped the key card. To my relief, the gates instantly opened. I walked forward into the grounds of VX Corporation. The slate-gray sky that threatened snow reached down from the heavens to coat the grounds in a soporific dreariness. I made my way ever closer to the towering, windowless structure at the end of the path. Judging from the black smoke that belched from the towers, I guessed it was VX Corporation's factory. Eventually, I found myself crowding alongside exhausted-looking employees as we trod along the broken concrete path lined with a few small, scraggly grasses gasping for air. Oh no! I caught a glimpse of rows of squat, decrepit-looking buildings to my left and right. To my horror, I watched as a gaunt man opened one of the doors, revealing what appeared to be squalid living conditions. That must be an incentive they used to get the workers to work here. Housing was difficult to find in Warsaw, especially for new refugees, but to live here, it was inhumane. Not only the conditions, but it also meant the workers would be forced to stay in order to keep their place of living. The crowds of people surged into the factory as I let myself be carried, trying hard to repress the sensation of being swallowed whole. As I stepped through the doors, the noise hit me first, the roaring of the dull gray machinery that was set amidst the backdrop of the windowless gray walls above the equally gray concrete floors. I began making my way across the enormous structure, striding with purpose so as to avoid attention. As I walked, I scrutinized the machines, attempting to discern what VX Corporation was really constructing here. Skirting around one enormous machine, I spotted a supervisor yelling at some of the workers who were standing around. Their machine seemed to be broken, but I watched as they pulled out dirty rags with a tired expression as they began to wipe down the equipment. What the hell? They couldn't even allow people who were undoubtedly making below minimum wage to sit down for 5 minutes? I inwardly seethed, but there was nothing I could do as I was forced to move on. Traveling further down the line, the constructed parts eventually began to take on a familiar form, as white, black, tan or gray aluminum alloy pieces merged around the unblinking glass lens eye of a security camera. I examined the camera closely. Ensuring no one was around, I examined the cameras, noting a faint VX etched into them as I quickly snapped the picture. Moving away, I quickly checked my phone, relieved to see that Pat had at last message. She informed me that she had successfully erased our presence, before sending me a location at which to meet her. As I followed the map navigation, eager to escape the dismal factory, I spotted a bright red door through which an employee was heading. There was something about their eyes, a hauntedness perhaps, that made me pause as I wondered curiously where they were going. Stayed in the factory. I needed to know what they were making. Something told me I needed to see what was back there. The employee approached the red door, swiping with a keycard to enter. I craned my neck to look, but the door swiftly slapped shut behind him before I had a chance to see inside. I think I'll just hack the system just in case the keycard doesn't work. I waited until no one was nearby as I sidled up to the door. The lock was nothing overly complicated. Presumably, they felt there was enough security for people entering VX Corporation, and any stray employee would be deterred by the lock. But for me, it was a matter of moments to hack it as I heard the door beep, allowing me entrance. A rush of chilled air greeted me as I stared around in growing horror as the machines here spat out not cameras, but weapons. Guns, pistols, rifles, the exact same weapons I had seen the guards carrying at the border. I felt my heart beating faster at the sight. I got myself under control. This was no time to panic as I calmed myself and continued walking. Hey, what are you doing here? I turned to see an older white man with an enormous beer belly and a scraggly beard walking toward me. No comprendo English. I looked at him, no Polish. His forehead creased into a frown as he muttered, "Why do we even hire these idiots if they don't speak our language?" What the fudge did you say to me? Oh no, I'm angry. Before could think, I was glaring at him as I snarled. What the fudge did you say to he hit me? No! His fist slammed into the side of the head as he snarled, "So freaking lying to me, were you?" I saw red as I reacted on instinct, turning to punch him square in the nose. He stared at me in shock as blood poured down his face, but I was beyond caring. I swung again and again until he at last lay bloodied and unconscious on the ground. I felt his eyes on me as I headed deep into the factory. I felt my despair growing. He hit me. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. Damn. I felt my despair growing the further I went. The clanging of the machinery as it spat out weapon parts, ringing with a strident off-key melody in my ears. The noise eventually lessened as I found myself upon stacks and stacks of crates. Examining the label of one of them, I inhaled sharply as I read the destination, Kabul, Afghanistan. I swiftly checked the next crate, this one going to Turkey, another to Ukraine. These bastards were shipping their weapons all over the world, regardless of which side of the war they were on. I had seen enough here as I turned to leave. Thankfully, nothing was blocking my path this time. The doorway was clear as I quickly rushed through it. Oh, that's a nice outfit. I navigated through the back hallways, the whitewashed walls with their glaring fluorescent lights creating a feeling of medical sterility. I felt a wrench of homesickness as I thought how starkly different this all was from the vibrant colors that we use in my homeland. Turning around the corner, I spotted an employee heading towards me. I just walked past him. I briskly walked past, hoping to appear as if I was headed somewhere important. This appeared to have the opposite effect as he stopped me. Glancing over my informal attire, he asked, "Are you lost? I work here." "I'm in IT," I said casually. I began rattling off about some imaginary person's computer problems. As I paused for breath, he quickly interjected, "Right, sorry," before taking off down the hall. I came at last to a large set of double doors labeled 𝒂𝒒𝒒𝒂𝒂, VP of Sales. I double-checked the location, but this was indeed where Pat said to meet as I headed on in. The doors opened to a room of leathers, marble and wood that had been clearly designed to exude a sense of dominance. Pat was sat at the back of the office in a brown leather chair situated behind an imposing desk, clicking away as she frowned at the computer in front of her. It was unnerving after the factory. The rich furnishings and modern aesthetic presented a horrifyingly sharp contrast to the grim grey dismalness of the factory. I walked quickly over to Pat. "Find anything?" I asked curiously, but she shook her head irritably. "No, the security on this computer is no joke. You're welcome to give it a try," Pat said, "or you can search the office, see if there's anything of interest." I'll do the computer. I have technology. I took over the search on the computer. Pat had managed to get past the initial login, but anything vaguely interesting looking was hidden behind tight security blocks. There was a file marked production that intrigued me, but unfortunately it seemed to also be heavily password protected. I was typing away, trying various ways to bypass it, when I noticed a small glowing hand tentatively reach out around to grasp at the computer screen. It was immediately followed by two large eyes that bobbed above the screen as it spoke in a voice like the wispy, faint clacking of a keyboard. "That way is locked, Werewolf." "Can you unlock it?" I asked eagerly. It stared at me, slowly blinking. "Of course I can." I waited, but they did not say any more as I at last sighed. "Okay, will you unlock it for me?" At that, it shook its head, a sly grin creeping over its face. "No." I recognize it now for what it was, a machine spirit, probably the very spirit of the computer itself. This one appeared more complex than most. While most machine spirits were simplistic in nature, only able to perform repetitive tasks, some of them took on a more complex nature. The information I guard is a secret, a delightful, delicious secret. It grinned widely, revealing surprisingly sharp teeth pointed in a decidedly V shape. Okay, so how do I get past it? I asked, trying to keep the exasperation out of my voice. It blinked, fading out of existence, then reappearing from the keyboard, two large eyes materializing next to my fingers. I stifled a curse as I jerked my hands back. Its sharp-toothed mouth appeared again, the V shape even more pronounced as it intoned, "I could help." I sensed a butt as I sighed, and what should I do to receive your help? The teeth began clacking on the keys excitedly. A game! A game suddenly popped on screen, one with numbers and squares and bombs that I immediately recognized as being notoriously difficult to defeat. I tried it. I knew the spirits were. Listen, I wheedled, knowing that these spirits could often be persuaded. I would love to play a game with you, but time is short, and perhaps there is a game that takes less time. Why would why wouldn't you want? You wouldn't want to sit here forever watching me, would you? It thought about this as it gnawed on the keyboard, at last saying, "Fine, new game." To my relief, a simple card game popped up as the spirit faded away. At last I beat the game. The spirit instantly dissipated from the keyboard, a pop-up window appearing on the screen. The pixelated face of the spirit materialized within it as it blinked out at me, words typing from underneath its mouth. The way is open. Family computers like being played on. Eagerly, I clicked open the production file. The documents confirmed what I had found earlier in the factory. My thoughts went to the refugees working in the factory. I felt sick. A sick feeling oozed within me. How effed up was it that they were making refugees, people fleeing from the war, make the very weapons that caused them to flee in the first place? Part of me understood. Although I wanted to be furious at the refugees who were working here, I knew in my heart that they must feel this was their only choice. It was either work here or be sent back to war. I could not support what they were doing, but neither could I condemn them. There was nothing more to find here. I deleted all traces of my presence before shutting off the computer and searching elsewhere. Okay. Maybe we finish searching the room and then we do a stoppy doodle. We will stop this. We will end soon after we finish searching the room. There were shelves of books behind the desk filled with classics that had clearly never been opened, and business self-help books that looked like they had been opened too much, with titles such as "Better You, Greater Meetings" and "Commit to Success, an Alpha Male's Guide to Showing Your Boss that Your Boss is You." In between the books were various picture frames, most of them featuring an older Polish man in a business suit, presumably Mr. VIP of sales himself. He had a few family photos, with a wife much younger than him, along with two children who stood stiffly by his side, all with fake smiles plastered on. One photo, in particular, caught my attention. Helena Zelinska. I immediately knew who it was, having seen her face up before on TV. Helena Zelenska. She had been on the news quite a bit recently, talking about providing aid for the Ukrainian refugees. She was stood alongside the VP and a man wearing a military uniform who I did not recognize. Damn, it's all a big conspiracy. I began rummaging through the topmost drawers of the VP's desk. Most of them were filled with plain white notepads embossed with what I assumed was his personal letterhead. A few were scribbled with various features and names, but nothing that particularly stood out. A small key in one caught my attention, but after trying it on several locks unsuccessfully, I replaced it back in the drawer. Opening one of the lower cabinets led At last to success, I discovered a small lock safe. I hacked the lock. I took out my phone and got to work bypassing the electronic system of the lock. After some time, I let out a small, muffled cry of excitement as the door made a small click before creaking open. Inside was a stack of files that began immediately, and I began immediately rummaging through them. Many of them mentioned shipments that were not only going to Poland, but to places around the world. We knew that 3 times by now. Shipments of weapons. This confirmed what I found before. I took photos. We would need this as evidence. Last one, file cabinets. Let me guess, you're also going to tell me that they ship weapons around the world. I headed over to the file cabinets that sat underneath a wide window overlooking the woods from earlier. I tried a few of them, but to my dismay, all of them were locked. I remembered the key. I suddenly remembered the small key in the desk drawer. Once I unlocked the filing cabinets, I began leafing through the files within. Most of it was gibberish to me, but one stood out. A list of funds going to Helena Zelenska and General 𝑰𝒏𝒂𝒎𝒆𝒂𝒂𝒍�. Sorry, Yuskoviak. This is all very difficult to pronounce. Helena Zelenska again. Once again, Helena Zelenska had appeared, but why were they sending money to her? PR backing, perhaps. I wasn't sure who the other man was, but I snapped a few photos just in case before replacing the files. Okay. I think that's a good place to leave it off. Oh my god, we're apparently at the 34% mark. Wait, that can't be right. We did like there's 5 chapters and we're like through chapter 3 quite a bit. 34%, damn. Guess we're only a third through this game. Okay, let me go back to main menu. Because my voice is dying. My voice is dying. I hope you like the reading, and let me just drink some water. Unless the final chapters are really long. That is fair. Chapter 2 was just really short for some reason. Let me just drink some water. So, I mean, so far I feel like I'm enjoying myself with the game. It's very different to Vampire the Masquerade, definitely. It feels like a lot more like fighting for justice kind of thing. Not really for justice, but like fighting for people's rights and protecting people and all these things. Which makes sense because the werewolves are supposed to be like the protectors. That is why they are against the vampires of Vampire the Masquerade and stuff. It was pretty neat. Yeah, we haven't done a reading stream in a long time. So I guess I'm not, my throat is not trained for it. I need to buff up my throat again. Because I think for today, it was like halfway through, I was already like struggling a bit. But like, I mean, I'm good. It's just that it does take a lot of effort to read. So okay, wait. So that was Werewolf the Apocalypse. Werewolf the Apocalypse Purgatory. I actually have another werewolf game that I might play next time. But also I wanted to mention for this game is a part of the Hungry Ghost Festival. I was just about to mention that, TA. Do you think you'll be returning this streaming wise or off stream? I will play it. All the games that I'm playing for Hungry Ghost Festival, I will finish playing them. Maybe not this month though. I think for after this week, I will probably focus on Expedition 33, try to finish that. And then I will continue these horror games, the ones that are like we've done halfway. I will continue them in October. I think that's a good time to continue them during the spooky month, and then we probably feel like more things in October. I have a lot of streams planned for October. Hopefully I will be up to it, like physically up to it. I always enjoy morning reading streams. Oh, that's great, Go Mudbugs. Thank you. Because I'm always not sure how the reading streams are received, especially since if you tune in halfway, you wouldn't know what is going on. Because it's like a movie. If you come into the half of the movie, it's a bit difficult to follow. But I think it's just maybe it's just nice to have like a little, like white noise. The game is interesting. Yeah, I feel like the game is pretty thought-provoking. So far, it has a lot of like, talking about like I guess a little bit like the morals of like supporting sides of war and stuff like that, and whether or not it's good. But it's not really, and it's doing it I feel like it's doing it in a way that it's not really pushing it down your throat as well. Like the character does feel bad, but at the same time you can pick other options to like not too bad of a stream, I guess. Not too bad of a thing, I guess. Thanks for stream. Thank you for coming, guys. Oh, let me see who's on. Who is on? Is Cuppycon on? Oh, Cuppycon's not on. She was here earlier, but she's not on. Let's see. We need to do a raid as usual. Who indeed? Sounds like a fun spooky month. Yeah! I think I'm gonna do like a fun spooky month thing. That'll be fun. Play a bunch of horror games. Okay, okay, I think we will raid Syria, maybe? She just went on. Okay, let me just redirect the redirect thing. Redirect to the redirect thing. Redirect to the redirect thing. Oh yeah, I forgot to say wait, I also forgot to say what we're playing tomorrow. One sec. I will add the redirect to the redirect thing first, and then I will tell you guys what we're playing tomorrow. Oh wait, I can't redirect to her. Whoops. Okay, never mind. Then we can redirect to who else is on. Let's see. Oh, okay. I'll redirect to Koro Bios also. Okay, one second. We do the redirect to the redirect thing first, and then tell you guys what we're playing tomorrow. Tomorrow we are playing. What are we playing tomorrow? What are we playing? Let me double check. We are playing. Where is it? Tomorrow we are playing 𝑑carnation. I'm pretty sure it's another pixel RPG kind of horror thing. I'm not sure if maybe it'll be more creepy than 𝑬𝒑𝒐, which we played yesterday, instead of like more character driven, I would say. I think it looks more creepy, at least from like the game images. But also, again, if you are interested in Hungry Ghost Festival and stuff, links and information, everything in the description of stream. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being here. I will go rest my throat now, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye. We're gonna raid. Bye bye.